London Lost Love Found. The hotel bar was slowly getting busier as nearby theaters and restaurants emptied. I sat back in my chair at the bar and caught the barman's eye. I pointed at my empty glass. He nodded, and a few moments later, a fresh glass of Armagnac was in front of me. I picked up the glass and breathed in the strong smell, lost in thought. That really had been Allison in the restaurant. Wow, that brought up some very painful memories. I raised my glass to my reflection in the mirror behind the bar and made a toast to the man I had become. The 30-year-old man looking back at me raised his glass in return. Joshua Thomas, but only my mother calls me by my full first name. I'm just over 6 feet tall when I'm not sitting here staring at myself. I'm no handsome hero, but I'm not a mess either. I'm just an ordinary guy, emotionally tired after everything that had happened over the last few days. I hadn't been back to London or the UK for a couple of years. A week ago, I was relaxing under the sun on the deck of the Lost Girl, my 45-foot sailing catamaran tied up in the marina in Valencia Harbor. I had no plans to leave the Mediterranean. My boat was my life and my home. It gave me comfort because I was broken inside, and Allison was the reason why. I needed a good excuse to return to the country where I was born, and that reason was why I was sitting here now. I had been sitting on the bench in the boat's cockpit, thinking about my upcoming trip to the Aegean Sea. I could sail the Lost Girl alone if I had to, but it was much easier with help. I asked around the local sailing community to see if anyone wanted to join me on the trip. There were usually a lot of former students looking for cheap ways to travel around the Mediterranean. I talked to several, but one girl, Mandy, caught my attention. She was 21 and an experienced sailor. Her parents owned an apartment on the island, and Mandy lived with them on their 35-foot yacht, which was moored on the other side of the marina. I met her boyfriend, and her parents for a drink at a nearby bar. Mandy impressed me with her calm confidence. She had been sailing since she was 10 and wanted to travel and make a little money during the break between finishing her bachelor's degree and starting her master's. Her boyfriend, Paul, didn't have much experience but knew enough about handling ropes. At first, I planned to take only one crew member, but they seemed so happy to sail together that I offered both of them a place. I would cover all their expenses, pay them a small salary, and provide transport to the airport and a ticket home when the trip ended. My phone rang, and I heard the news. Stephen had died. I told them I would be back in a week and caught a flight the next day. I had come home to attend the funeral of an old university friend and to honor his parents' wish that I speak at the service. But that was not the real reason I sat alone at the bar, lost in my thoughts. The real reason was much deeper and personal. The funeral had been just as sad as I expected. Stephen and I had been friends from school through university before going our separate ways. We always kept in touch. I was shocked when his parents called last week, saying he had died in a strange skiing accident and asking me to give a eulogy. At the funeral, I caught up with some other university friends. 5 of us agreed to meet the next evening for dinner. Paul, a well-known journalist, got us a table at a popular restaurant in the West End. The night started well. It was the first time in years that all of us could sit down and talk. After the sadness of earlier, it was good to relax. There were 5 of us: Paul, Catherine, Julia, her husband William, and me. We had drinks in my hotel bar before walking to the restaurant. We enjoyed the food and wine and shared memories of Stephen and his wild stories from university, our own kind of Irish wake. Then we talked about what we had all been doing since. As the dinner was finishing, Julia grabbed my arm and pointed across the room. "Isn't that Ashley Bell, the actress over there?" she asked. I hoped she was wrong. I looked where she was pointing and felt my stomach drop. There she was, sitting quietly in the corner, the woman whose face was stuck in my mind. Some things looked different. Her nose looked smaller, and the dimple on her chin was gone. Her long blonde hair was a richer gold, still falling down her back. She smiled softly while talking to a man, maybe in his 30s. I knew who she was. When I knew her, she was Allison Peters. Seeing her now brought back dark memories I thought I had pushed away. I shrugged and said, "I can't tell." I wanted to avoid the subject, so I added, "I don't think so." But I was lying to them and to myself. I knew it was Allison. Julia was sure. "I think it is. I love her movies. I'm going to ask her for her autograph." I jumped as Julia got up. I watched as she walked across the room and asked the actress for her autograph. A man at a nearby table half stood up but sat back down after a nod from Allison, also known as Ashley. She smiled at him, and they talked for a few moments. Julia pointed back to our table. Ashley looked over at us, and our eyes met. For a moment she seemed confused. Then her mouth opened in what looked like surprise or shock, I couldn't be sure. A strong feeling of unease came over me. I stammered my apologies, left some money on the table, and hurried away. I glanced back and saw Julia looking at me in surprise while Ashley spoke to her quietly. The streets were wet, and I pulled up my collar against the cold wind and rain. My mind felt cold and empty, and I shivered as I walked back to the hotel in the warmth of the bar. My phone rang several times, but I ignored it. How can I describe Allison? Everyone knows her as Ashley Bell, the actress. They say she's one of the best actresses of our time and has been nominated for several big awards. But to me, she will always be Allison Peters, Allie, the girl who used to live next door. The girl I grew up with, my first girlfriend, and the one who hurt me and took away my confidence in myself as a man. She was 5 when I first met her. We moved into the house next door, and my first memory of her was a blonde-haired girl peeking over the low fence between our back gardens. Her face was smudged with dirt. She smiled at me, and at that moment I felt like I had met someone very special. Another? The barman's question broke my thoughts. I looked up and realized my glass was empty. "Please," I said. A moment later, a fresh glass was in front of me. I picked it up, swirled the drink around, and breathed in the strong smell before going back to my memories. She was my best friend during childhood. Her parents, Michael and Joyce, became like second parents to me. We held hands when we first walked to school together. She gave me my first kiss at my 8th birthday party. I was the only one allowed to call her Ali, and she was the only one allowed to call me Joss. At 14, she was a beautiful teenager, already showing she would grow into a stunning woman. She was also very protective. Once, at a school dance, she came up to me and pulled me away from a girl I was dancing with. She told the girl to stay away from her boyfriend and then pulled me close, and we shared a kiss that made me feel full of energy and excitement. By 16, she was the most beautiful girl in school. She turned down the attention of many boys and made sure everyone knew we were together whenever she could. 18 months later, she was gone, leaving my life in an instant. It felt like a sad story fit for a play. My grandfather had moved to Australia to live with his new wife. My grandmother had passed away before I was born. Several years ago, my grandfather had met and fallen in love with Beverly, an Australian woman he met on a cruise. They had a serious car accident. Beverly died, and my grandfather was very sick. Beverly did not have family, so my parents and I flew over to be with him. He died a week after we arrived. It took 2 more weeks to take care of his and Beverly's things before we could fly home. I was eager to see Allison after almost 4 weeks away. I had missed her so much. I decided I would never be apart from her again. Among my grandfather's things was my grandmother's engagement ring. It was a beautiful ring with diamonds and sapphires. My parents offered it to me. I planned to ask Allison to marry me. We had agreed to get engaged on her 18th birthday and marry after finishing university. Now that I had the ring, I wanted to show it to her. I was already out of the car, holding the box with the ring before it stopped. But then I froze. Their house was empty. The windows had no curtains, and there was a sign in the front garden showing the house had been sold. "There was a big fight a few days after you left," Mrs. Carpenter, who lived across the street, told us. "The police came and took the husband away. The wife and daughter packed and left the next day." She didn't know where Allison and her mother had gone. Michael came home after a few days, moved out, and put the house up for sale. It was sold last week, and no one knew where Michael had gone. The new owners would move in next month. "But didn't Allison leave any messages for me?" I asked, struggling to hold back tears. "No, lad," Mrs. Carpenter said. "She got hurt in the fight and had to go to the hospital. She never came back here. It was Joyce who came back the next day and packed the suitcases for her and Allison." "What? Who hurt her?" "I don't think it was very bad," Mrs. Carpenter said quietly. "She was holding her arm when they took her to the ambulance, that's all." Then she added softly to my mother, "Someone from number 45 said Michael caught Joyce with her boss." No one could tell me what really happened to Allison. After seeing me upset for several days, my father went to Joyce's office. He spoke to some people who worked with her. When he came back, he said, "I'm sorry, son, but they couldn't or wouldn't tell me much. Joyce and her boss have left their jobs. They think the three of them have gone to America. I'm sure Allison will get in touch as soon as she can." But she didn't. I spent several years feeling very sad. I barely noticed what was going on during my first year at university. I only started to come out of my shell because my flatmate Stephen and his friends paid me some attention. This was the same Stephen I had spoken about with great feeling just the day before. It took 10 years before I got my first real clue about where Allison was, and it happened in the last place I expected, 38,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, on a plane flying to Canada. There she was, looking straight at me from the screen on the back of the seat in front of me. She was the main actress in the movie I was watching. Today, with non-stop news about celebrities, it's strange to think I didn't know about her acting career sooner. But I'd spent most of the past 5 years living on a boat, and as I found out, she wasn't using the name Allison anymore. I hardly watched TV, and when I did, it was usually just for sports. The only time I watched movies was on flights, and then only if I didn't have a book to read. I had chosen this movie because it was based on a book I liked. I preferred books, music, and tasting the local food. Not surprising, really, since I was a travel writer who liked to soak up new cultures. I made money by writing travel articles for magazines and Sunday papers. I also earned enough from selling novels to live comfortably on my sailing boat in the Mediterranean. Her face on the screen stayed with me, but I didn't see her name in the movie credits. She was the woman I had loved so deeply that after she disappeared, it took me years of help to try to move on and live something close to a normal life. Only when I checked the credits at the end did I find out that she was now going by the name Ashley Bell. The name sounded familiar. I remembered reading that Ashley Bell was an award-winning actress. The flight I was on marked the beginning of an important work trip, and I was very busy for the first few days. When I had some free time, I searched online for the woman Allison had become. It took me a few days, but I found out she was in Australia, filming her next movie. I tried to reach out to her. I knew thousands of people must be writing to her every year, so I was unsure if she would see my message. I found the email address of her agent. I wrote a simple message using both her real and stage names. I shared some details from her earlier life that showed I really knew her. I gave my contact information and waited, hoping to hear back. A few days later, I got a message back. Miss Bell said she had read my letter but didn't remember me. She also said she couldn't have personal chats with fans. I tried to reach her on her Twitter and fan site too, but got no response. Any small hope I had of finding out why she never reached out was gone. It seemed she didn't remember the boy who lived next door all those years. She had clearly moved on and didn't want anything to do with her past. I thought being ignored would hurt, but strangely, it didn't. Maybe time had made me less sensitive. That's when I realized what I truly felt. Seeing her again after so long had stirred up old feelings, and the one thing I really wanted to know, why she had never tried to contact me, no longer mattered. Now, 2 years later, I had accepted that Allison would not be part of my life. I had seen her in person, and the sense of loss came back strong. All I wanted was to get away as far as possible. I knew it was silly, but seeing her again brought back all the pain I thought I had left behind. The thought that she probably wouldn't even talk to me was too much to handle. The sounds of the bar brought me back to reality. I finished my drink. The busy bar had gotten quieter. Only a few people were left. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it like before. Then a quiet voice behind me spoke softly. "Joss, why are you ignoring calls from your girlfriend, your oldest friend?" I didn't turn around. I just looked at my glass. "Oldest friend," I said with a bitter tone. She would have found a way to reach me 12 years ago. My girlfriend would have known she was hurting me. Maybe she would have answered my emails 2 years back. But now she's too important to talk to old friends, especially ones she doesn't even remember. "Are you sure you've got the right person?" I heard a quiet sob and felt someone sit beside me. I still didn't look. "I'm sorry, Joss," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I didn't know I hurt you so much." "Don't call me that," I said. "Only one friend ever called me Joss, and you're not her anymore." There was silence, broken only by another sob. "Joss, I'll leave if you want," she said. "But please, let me explain. Can we go somewhere private and talk?" I glanced around. Most people in the bar were watching us, some openly. No, not watching us, her. I knew I might regret this, but I needed to understand why she had left me all those years ago. I felt angry that she had ignored me for so long. "I can ask if there's a quieter place, or I have a room here where we can talk if you want," I said. "I'd rather use your room," she answered. I nodded, and she stood up and walked away while I paid the bill. I left a big tip, thinking that at least someone should have a good thing from this bad night. When I turned, I saw her in the door to the lobby. The man she was sitting with earlier was standing next to her, holding her arm in a way that showed he cared for her a lot. I wondered who he was, a friend, boyfriend, or maybe a husband. I didn't know, and the man didn't look happy to see me. He kept giving me cold looks as he talked to her. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I stayed back, leaning on the bar. The barman asked me, "You know Ashley Bell?" He had been listening to us. It wasn't really his business, but I answered. "I knew her a long time ago, but this is the first time I saw her in years." I pointed at her. "Do you know who the man with her is?" The barman looked surprised. "You don't know much about her, do you? He's her ex-boyfriend. There was a story on E! News a few days ago about how he wanted to make up." "I get that he is the ex, but who is he?" I asked. "Wow, you really don't know anything. That's Simon Davies, the actor. You know, they starred together in that film last year. They were close on and off screen, so people say." The name sounded familiar, but I wasn't into movies much. I watched as he put his arm around her, but she quickly moved away and pushed him. He gave me a mean look, then turned and walked off. "No making up then," I said to the barman, and he chuckled. She made a quick hand movement like telling me to come over. That really annoyed me. Who did she think I was? Some kind of pet to call like that. I turned and left through another door that led to the elevators. She ran after me and caught up while I waited for the lift doors to open. She looked surprised. I doubted she was used to being ignored like that for so long. Seeing my face, she knew I was not happy with her. She took my arm gently. "Please, Joss, don't go. I can explain," she said. "I said yes to Simon's invitation tonight to try and clear things up between us, but he thought it meant more than I did. Seeing you at the restaurant was such a surprise, I tried to get away from him as fast as I could. Your friends gave me your number and told me where you were staying." He must have followed me here. "Allie, I don't care about your personal life. What does bother me is when you start acting like you're better than everyone else. I'm not someone you can just call when it's convenient." She looked surprised at what I said, then quickly looked embarrassed. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. The walls were covered with panels and mirrors. I pressed the button for my floor. Just as the doors were starting to close, she hurried in and stood beside me. We stayed quiet as the elevator went up. When it stopped and the doors opened, she followed me down the hall to my room. I went inside and she paused at the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. I nodded, and she stepped in and closed the door behind her. I hung my coat on a hook and took off my jacket, placing it on the back of a chair. My room had a cozy sitting area by the windows. It was a corner room, softly lit by a small light over the bed and another lamp near the chairs. Allie watched me move around with a strange look on her face. I held out my hand, and she took off her coat. She wore a dark blue dress that reached just above her knees. Her long legs were covered in shiny stockings. Her beauty caught me off guard, and I had to take a deep breath to keep my feelings steady. "Do you want to sit down?" I asked. She smiled gratefully and sat in one of the soft chairs by the window. She folded her hands in her lap. "Would you like a drink? I have whiskey, or there might be wine or beer in the minibar. A glass of white wine, if you have it." I found a bottle in the minibar and poured her a glass, placing it on the table. "So, what should I call you? Ashley? Or do you still prefer Allison?" I asked. "I'll always be Allison for you," she said. "And I'm glad you still remember me as Allie. Ashley is someone from a dream world I don't think you'd want to be part of." I poured myself some whiskey and settled into the other chair. "So, do you want to explain why you broke my heart all those years ago?" She paused, then shook her head. I've always loved you, Joss, after what happened at home. Yeah, you really showed that, I said sharply, then took a deep breath. But what really happened? All I ever heard were rumors and guesses. My mom was having an affair, Allison said quietly, and it dragged me into the mess. She took a long drink from her glass, and I poured more for her. It was all so stupid, she said. I got sick at school and needed to go home. They called my parents but couldn't reach Dad. When Mom came to pick me up, she was with her boss, Chad. I didn't notice much because I felt so sick. I went straight to my room. Chad stayed downstairs with Mom. Dad must have seen his messages because he came home early and caught them together on the sofa. They were shouting loudly, and it woke me up. I was still sleepy and slipped on the last few steps. I put my hand out to stop myself and hurt my arm. Bad? She shook her head. I only cracked a bone in my wrist. So it was true. Your mom was seeing someone else. Allie nodded. It had been going on for a while. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten between my parents. Dad had been hurting her when I wasn't there. That surprised me. He had acted like he was the good one when he talked to my parents. They were sure it was all Mom's fault. Dad came home early because of a message from school and caught them, she said. I remember sitting on the bottom step looking into the living room. Mom was trying to cover herself and some clothes were on the floor. Chad wasn't fully dressed either. They stopped yelling when they heard me hit the wall. Mrs. Carpenter said you went to the hospital. Yeah, Mom called an ambulance when she saw my wrist. She didn't let Dad come with us. I stayed in the hospital overnight. Then Mom took me to a hotel for a few days. The next thing I remember, we were at the airport flying to America with Chad. I didn't want to go, but Mom said we had to. We stayed in a cabin in Colorado for the first months. Why didn't you call or write? I wasn't allowed to contact you. Mom said Dad threatened us both if we tried to run away. That's not true. Why would I tell your dad? I haven't seen him since you left. But he lives next to your parents. None of us saw him for years. Your house was empty and sold before we came back from the funeral. We only saw him a couple of times. Your mom knew that. Anyway, you could have just said, "Don't tell my dad," and I wouldn't have. Allie looked shocked. I swear Mom never told me that. After a few months, Chad got a new job in Dallas, so we moved to a small town nearby after the cabin. They got married a few months after her divorce was final. She paused to sip her drink. I was told my father kept sending threatening letters to Chad's workplace. A security officer from Chad's company came to warn us that the FBI was watching things and to be careful. I wanted to write to you, but I was scared. I had to spend an extra year at school to graduate. It was a new school, and everything was so different. Then a year passed, and you didn't contact me, so I kind of forgot. Forgot? You really forgot me. How was I supposed to get in touch? I had no idea where you were. Well, I'm glad it was easy for you. I cried myself to sleep every night for 6 months. I had to see a counselor for almost a year because Mom and Dad thought I was very sad. Her hand touched mine and made me put the glass down. She pulled me to face her. I'm so sorry. Everyone kept saying you'd forget me. You were in Australia, and then my world just fell apart. How do you think I felt? At least you knew where I was. She sobbed, and tears formed in her eyes. I grabbed a box of tissues from the side of the bed and gave them to her. She wiped her face. All I know is I came downstairs and Dad was shouting at Mom and trying to stop Chad. Mom was trying to stop him. Then he turned on her and then me. When he tried to get in the ambulance, I got scared and just told him to go away. That was the last time I saw him. I lived right next door. You could have at least asked your mom to drop a note through the letterbox before you left at night. It all happened so fast. One day we were a happy family. Then everything changed. 2 days later we were on a plane, and then we stayed in a small cabin in the mountains for a couple of months. I never had a moment's peace. By the time we got settled, England felt like a dream. My new life was a small town in Texas. She stopped talking, looking at the hurt on my face. I felt a deep sense of loss. What did you mean earlier when you said I could have answered your email? Her voice was soft and unsure. I laughed a little, then said seriously, the first time I knew you were still out there was just over 2 years ago. I was flying to Canada, and there you were in the movie I was watching. I sent you an email through your agent. Want to see what she replied? I didn't wait for her answer. I found the message on my phone and showed her. I don't know why I hadn't deleted it. She read it and then looked at the email I sent. She looked upset. I never saw this. I should have. There's a list of words and phrases the people who handle my mail watch for. Your message had many of them. Why didn't you try again? Why bother? I could tell it was a way to avoid me. At least I got a reply from your agent. I never got anything from your fan site or social media. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Then her voice grew sharp. I'm going to find out why your emails didn't reach me. Tears ran down her face. I really dislike it when women cry. No matter what, I always felt bad. I held out my hand to her, and she took it without hesitation. I don't see how it's your fault if others don't do their jobs right, I said, trying to help. She grabbed my hand with both of hers and said, I get so many messages every month. I probably only read a few of them, but they should have sent me yours. She came closer and kneeled by my feet. Her long hair fell forward, and she brushed it back with her hand, like she always used to. My stomach tightened at the memory. I slowly reached out and touched her soft hair. She rested her head on my leg. Why are you here? I asked. I don't know if I spoke out loud, but Allie answered anyway. You were the last person I expected to see at that restaurant. Even though it's been years, I knew it was you as soon as I saw your face. You looked like you hurt. I tried to call you, but you left too fast. I had to wait until Simon left, then convince your friends to tell me where you went. I didn't mean how you found me. I meant why are you here? I nodded around the room. That's easy. You were my first boyfriend, the only person I ever really loved. I don't think I ever loved anyone else the way I loved you. We were teenagers, Allie, I said. You were my first girlfriend, and yes, I loved you, but that was 12 years ago. A lot has happened since then. Can I ask you something? Did you still wait until your 18th birthday for that first time like you planned? She gave me a sad look and shook her head. No. I cried myself to sleep that night because I missed you so much. I was 19 and drunk when I lost it to some guy at a college party. It hurt. It was over quickly. And after that, I didn't want to be with men for a while. She moved a little to get more comfortable, so I helped her up, and we sat on a small sofa together. She relaxed beside me with a soft sigh and gently kissed my cheek. Didn't want to be with men? I asked. It wasn't a good moment, and I didn't want to try again for a while. I wasn't alone. I lived with all women in a house, and my girlfriend was my roommate until I graduated. Suddenly, her phone made a loud beep, and Allie jumped. She quickly stood up and went to the jacket I had folded nearby. I'm sorry, she said. If I don't check this, someone might come knocking before we're ready. I looked confused. She pulled out her phone, read the message fast, and then wrote a quick reply. Almost right away, her phone rang and she picked it up. Obtuse, David, she said, then paused and added, No, everything is going as planned. I hope to stay here tonight. I'll call you if things change. She hung up and looked at me with a little guilt. Sorry. I'm assuming too much, I know, but I didn't think we were done talking. Who or what is Obtuse David? I asked. She laughed. Obtuse is this week's secret code word. We use a word that you wouldn't expect in a normal chat. If I hadn't said it, David would have forced his way in. As my bodyguard. I can't go out in public without some kind of protection. David and Petra were with me at the restaurant. They're waiting in the lobby now. I sat there watching her. If I needed proof that this wasn't the girl I used to know, I just got it. This wasn't Allison anymore. This was Ashley Bell, a big star. And what on earth was she doing in my room? She must have seen that I was uneasy because she quickly sat beside me. She gently held my face and kissed me. I'm still Allison, you're Allison, she whispered, pulling away. Yes and no, I thought. My Allie isn't a movie star. She's the sweet, simple girl next door, I said. I'm still that girl, she said softly. The girl who loves the boy next door. I've just grown up. I can see that, I said. She raised her hand and softly touched the curve of my chin. Remember the summer we slept in the tent in your backyard? She asked. We were 8 or 9. We were 8, I said. I remembered. It had been a magical time. That summer started badly. Our 2 families had planned a holiday together, a trip to Cyprus. But 2 weeks before we were supposed to go, The travel company went out of business. It took months for our families to get their money back, so no new trip was possible. Trying to explain that to two upset kids was hard. Our parents did their best. They planned day trips for us instead. Sometimes one set of parents took us, while the others enjoyed some free time. When we got back after the first trip, Allie and I found a tent set up in my garden. Inside were two camp beds with blankets from our own beds. We slept in that tent the whole summer. We pushed the beds close and held hands as we fell asleep. It was innocent childhood love. "That's when I fell in love with you," Allie whispered. "When did you fall in love with me?" I asked. It wasn't that summer for me. Back then, I thought we were just best friends. I paused a moment, trying to remember when my feelings changed. "When we were 11 at the August Bank Holiday Carnival," I said. "We went to the fun fair, and I got upset when Martin Ruby tried to get close to you. I remember pulling him away because I thought only I should be near you. I told you I was your boyfriend, not Martin. That was the first time I saw you as more than just a good friend." She smiled and said, "I remember that. I was wearing my first bra, and Martin kept trying to pinch the straps. You got mad and said you'd hit him." I couldn't remember the bra, only that she looked so nice and that she was my friend, not his. I recalled she'd told her bodyguard she was staying here. I thought that meant she had a room booked in the hotel. It was late, and I had a meeting with my agent the next morning. "Ali, I love having you here with me, but I need to sleep. Tomorrow will be a busy day. If you're still here tomorrow night, can I take you out for dinner?" "I'd like that. I'm tired, too," she said. I didn't realize how late it was. She stood up, but instead of going to the door, she walked into the bathroom and closed the door behind her. I stood and stretched, trying to relax my back. I looked out the window at the sleeping city. From the 20th floor, the view was amazing. I saw many buildings lit up, some I didn't know. The London skyline had changed a lot since I last saw it. The glass reflected the lights from the bathroom, and I saw Allie coming back into the room. At first, I didn't notice she looked different. Then she walked over and wrapped her arms around me, pressing close to my back. I felt a shiver as I remembered the times Allison had done this when we were younger. "London looks different at night," she said softly. "So clean and fresh." She didn't see the mix of feelings I had being that close to her. I nodded and said, "It really does." "Do you live here?" I asked. "I have an apartment by the river for when I visit," she said quietly. "But most of the time I'm in the States in LA. It's silly, really. I don't like the place, but people expect me to live there." "Where do you live?" "I have a flat by the sea in Brighton, but it's rented out most of the time. I live on a boat, which is moored near Malta right now." "A boat?" She smiled softly. "Can I come and stay with you?" I surprised myself by saying, "Sure, anytime you want. Just tell me when." She pulled my arm and turned me to face her. She'd changed into a bathrobe. "No, I mean, can I come with you when you go?" "Why? What do you want?" "I want us to start again. I want us to get to know who we are now. I want you to show me your world, and me to show you mine. Please, Joss. I never stopped loving you, and I'm sure you feel the same," she said softly. This wasn't the right moment for an easy answer. I remember being in love with the girl next door, but I don't know much about the woman sitting here, I said, thinking about how she had waved at me in the bar earlier. "I'm happy with how my life is now, and I don't want to change it to be someone's sidekick." She looked at me with surprise and a little sadness. "I want the boy from next door, the boy who made me feel safe. I don't know this new you, but I believe the Joes I love is still inside," and she touched my chest lightly. If I wanted a sidekick, I would have said yes to Simon and the others. I didn't. I took a chance and asked, "Do you have a place to stay, or do you want to stay with me tonight?" She smiled and showed me what she was wearing without saying a word. I smiled back briefly. "Yes, I know you look beautiful, even in my bathrobe, but can we take it slow? I'm not sure how I feel yet. Can we just hold each other?" For a moment, I thought Allie looked unhappy, but then she smiled. "I'd like that, like when we went camping before." "Well, maybe I can ask if there's a spare bed somewhere," I said jokingly. "You're silly," she laughed, and then gave me a soft, quick kiss on the lips. I followed her into the bathroom to get ready for bed. I hadn't expected any company. so I changed into clean clothes after a quick shower. I smiled when I saw her blue dress hanging on the door with a pair of stockings and a strapless bra. She had been wearing only her underwear under the robe. The bedroom was dark, with only a small light by the bed giving off a soft glow. Allison lay under the covers, her eyes reflecting the light as she watched me. I slid under the covers, and she curled close to me, her warm skin touching mine. "Shouldn't you be wearing your Tigger pajamas if we're pretending to camp?" I teased. She laughed quietly. "Wow, you remember those. It's hard to forget the first time I slept beside a girl." She smiled widely. "I think Mom still has that photo she took of us sleeping. We pushed our beds together and held hands." She moved closer and rested her head on my chest. I took a deep breath, kissed the top of her head, and wrapped my arm around her. She shifted slightly, her leg resting on my thigh and her arm across my chest. "Good night, Joss," she whispered. "Good night, Allie." I felt the tension leave her body, and soon her breathing became steady, showing she was asleep. I lay there listening to her, trying to understand all that had happened tonight. Just 6 hours ago, I had a worry in the world. Now, I was with one of the most famous women in the world, and I didn't know what she wanted or where this was going. My eyes closed, and the quiet sounds of London at night were the last things I heard before drifting off. The sharp sound of the phone in the room woke us up in the morning. Allie held me tight as I reached for it. "Mr. Thomas, it's Lauren from the front desk. A gentleman wants to speak with you. Can I connect the call?" "Sure," I said, still sleepy. I put my hand over the phone and whispered to Allie, "I think this is for you." She lifted her head from my shoulder. "Can you check who it is first? My security should be trying to call my phone." The voice on the phone answered, "Tell her it's David, and her phone is turned off." I passed the message to her and then gave her the phone before getting out of bed to use the bathroom. When I came back, Allie held the phone between her shoulder and ear as she looked for her own phone on the table. "The battery is dead," she said. "If Joss has a charger, I'll plug it in. Could you ask Lucy to bring me some clean clothes? All I have are the ones I wore last night." She listened for a moment more before saying, "An hour will be fine, thank you." She handed the phone back to me and I hung up. She had an iPhone like me, so I plugged hers into my charger. Then I kissed her as she pulled me into a hug. "Are you hungry?" I asked. "Very," she answered with a small laugh. "I didn't finish my dinner last night. Something came up." I called room service and ordered breakfast for us. "We've got about 30 minutes. Do you want to take a shower or something? There's an extra toothbrush in my bag you can use." "You're a lifesaver. I'd love a shower," she said. Then, after a pause, she shyly asked, "Will you join me?" I hesitated. Was this what I wanted? Allie had hurt me before, and I wasn't sure where this was leading. It took me years to move on from her. Did I really want to open those old wounds again? She took my hand, looking hopeful and eager. I gave in and nodded. She led me to the bathroom. I turned on the shower, and while we waited for the water to warm, we brushed our teeth together. We shared a quick kiss, just to test the toothpaste it passed. The water came on at just the right temperature. I looked at Allie and thought about how much she had changed since we first met. Her long, wavy blonde hair was piled loosely on top of her head. She was not very tall. Her head would rest below my cheek. I am 6'1". She was slim and graceful. Her chest looked a little bigger than I remembered, now a full C-cup with a clear pink color. She had trimmed her hair below, leaving only a small, light strip that showed where she was most private. Allie moved under the running water, and I stepped close behind her. She handed me a sponge and leaned back as I started to wash her. She sighed happily as the soapy sponge moved over her chest. "I remember you doing this for me before Sally's 17th birthday party. I was going to share something special with you that night, but I got nervous," she whispered, looking up for a kiss. "I wish I hadn't," I said softly as our lips touched. We rinsed off, carefully helping each other, copying the gentle flow of the shower. I shivered when she cleaned me carefully. "Easy now," she said with a smile, noticing I was a little tense. "I'm hungry. If we start now, I don't think we'll finish before room service arrives." I shook my head. This was moving faster than I wanted or felt good. I stepped away and said, "We can't have that. and I don't want you to feel rushed. I got out of the shower, leaving her to finish. I dried off and tried to relax. After a while, I put on some boxers, then a soft pair of jeans and a cotton shirt. Once dressed, I sat on the end of the bed and watched her through the open door. She picked up her clothes, grimaced, and tossed them down. She smiled at me, then grabbed a pair of my boxers to wear before putting on the robe. She brushed her long hair and used the hairdryer to dry it. When the doorbell rang, she stepped into the bathroom and closed the door. I went to open the door for the waiter. He set up the breakfast by the window and left after I signed the bill. "He's gone!" I called out. Still wrapped in the white robe, Allie came and sat across from me. I poured the coffee and we began to eat. Allie stopped, fork halfway to her mouth. "I really want to stay on your boat," she said seriously. "I want to learn everything about you, and I need to tell you what has been happening to me. When are you planning to leave?" Earlier, I thought she meant sometime in the future, not soon or for sure. I had hoped to return to the boat and have time to think about everything. "I'm going back the day after tomorrow," I said. "The boat is at the marina in Valencia Harbor." "That's bad timing," she said. "I'm here for the premiere of my new film on Saturday. Would you stay a couple more days so I could fly with you? You could come with me to the premiere." I had seen some movie premieres on TV and been to a few small award events in the past. I had always felt a little sorry for people who came along with their important others, only to be left standing in the shadows, ignored. That was not how I wanted to spend an evening, so I shook my head. "I don't think you want me there. I'm not in the mood to be the good boyfriend." She smiled and knelt down in front of me. "I don't want you to pretend. I want you to be my boyfriend." She gave me a shy look. "To me, you still are my boyfriend. I don't remember us breaking up, so technically we're still together. I want you to come with me as my boyfriend." Her serious words almost made me laugh. She stood up and sat on my lap, playfully reaching for some bacon I had. "Stolen boyfriend bacon tastes better," she said with a little smile, her mouth full. Then she turned so she faced me, took my hand, and gently put it inside her robe. After a quiet moment, she looked into my eyes and said, 12 years ago, I told you you were the only one I could ever love. Despite some mistakes along the way, I kept that promise. I love you just as much now, and since finding you again, am not letting go." She leaned close to me, then suddenly sat up straight. "Wait, you're not married or in a relationship, are you? I never asked." "No, I'm not," I said quietly with a little sadness. "It took a long time to get over you leaving. I've had a few short relationships, but nothing serious." She looked sorry for a moment and then relaxed back down with a soft sigh. I sat still, trying hard to understand what was happening. Was Allie really still in love with me? Did I want to open my heart again, only to be hurt if it was just a passing feeling and she would leave once more? We were still sitting quietly when someone knocked at the door. A female voice with an American accent called out, "Ash, it's Lucy." "Can you let her in, please?" Allie said, standing and moving out of sight near the door. The door opened, showing a tall man in a suit and a small woman with dark hair, probably in her late 20s. She had a medium suitcase, which she pulled behind her as she stepped inside. The man stayed by the door but didn't come in. I felt like I was being quietly judged by someone who knew more than I did, but I had no idea why or how I passed. "I guess you're David. Are you coming in?" He shook his head quickly and didn't reply to his name. "No, he'll stay out here. He'll be just over there if she needs me." He pointed to a small corner down the hall where a couple of chairs and a table sat, with 2 empty coffee cups on it. I closed the door and saw Allie hugging the woman. The suitcase on the bed was open and full of clothes and a big makeup bag. The woman looked at me quickly, then turned away, making me feel like a stranger in my own room. Allie noticed I was tense. She took Lucy's hand and turned her to face me. "Lucy," she said, "I want you to meet Josh. I've known him most of my life. He was my best friend since I was 5 and my first boyfriend. We hadn't seen each other in years until we met last night at the restaurant." "But weren't you there with Simon?" Lucy asked. "You know I was. The jerk wasn't happy when I left him to talk to Josh." I noticed Allie was calling me Josh, saving Jaws for herself, just like I only use Alice's full name when we're alone. "Left him to talk to you?" Lucy sounded surprised. "I had to. I heard him years ago, and Josh didn't want to talk to me. When he saw me at the restaurant, he left right away. I had to follow him here. While they talked, Lucy spread out some lingerie on the bed. Then she looked to Ali, waiting for her to choose. Ali looked at me and softly said, "Can you pick one for me, please?" Lucy looked surprised. There were 3 sets. My eyes went to a blue lace set, close to the color of Alice's eyes. "That one," I said, and Ali smiled at me. "That's very nice, and now it's one of my favorites," she said, dropping the robe. Lucy gasped in surprise. "Ash, I don't think—" Ali shushed her and quietly moved to change. "Lucy, you're more than 12 years too late to worry about Josh seeing me like this. How old were we, love?" I thought for a moment. 6. We were 6 playing in your garden pool. And many times after that, Ali said. "You'll have to get used to Josh being around me again because, if I'm lucky, he'll forgive me and maybe let me be his girlfriend again." Lucy looked me over for a long moment, and I felt like I didn't live up to her expectations. Ali did something women do when putting on a bra. She fastened it around her waist, turned it, slid her arms in the straps, and adjusted it. It was the first time I saw this, and it was just as interesting now as it was then. Lucy told her to put the robe back on and sit at the desk. She opened the makeup kit. Ali was beautiful already, but after Lucy worked on her, she looked stunning. "Is this how you get ready every morning?" I asked. Ali laughed. "No way. I have a live TV interview at noon. Can you come with me?" "It would be nice to know you're there," she said. "I'm sorry, Allison, I can't," I said, using her real name to show Lucy that I wasn't a stranger she had met. "I'm busy. I have a lunch meeting with my agent today. It's the first time I've been in London for a few years, and she wants me to meet my publisher." Ali looked a bit sad and guilty. "I never asked what you do. All I know is that you live on a boat." "You didn't, did you?" "I'm a writer. Mostly I write travel articles for magazines and Sunday papers. I've also written a few novels, some of which sold well enough to pay the bills." Ali looked curious. "Have you written anything I might have read?" "I doubt it," I said. Just to be sure, I looked through the magazines on the desk. Among the usual fancy travel books was a copy of Yachting World. It had an article I wrote about cruising around the coast of Sardinia. I showed it to her. She sat and read while Lucy played with her hair. "Is that your boat?" Ali asked, pointing to a photo of me steering a catamaran with full sails on the second page. I nodded. "Yes, that's her. I've been living on her for 5 years. It's a pretty yacht." "She," I corrected her. "Yachts are she, not it." She smiled and reminded me that I had promised to take her to dinner that evening. I stopped for a moment. I realized my usual way of finding a place to eat just walking down the street until I saw something good wouldn't work with Ali. I had a few favorite traditional restaurants where I could enjoy some old British meals on my rare visits home, but I doubted those places were right for her. I hesitated, then took the easy way and quickly asked, "Where would you like to go?" "I wouldn't mind finishing at the restaurant from last night. The food looked good, but they'd only just brought the starters when I saw you." I looked at her doubtfully. I wasn't sure I could get a table there. Paul told me the place was very popular, and we only got in last night because someone canceled, and he knew the person at the front desk. To be honest, since that was where her ex had taken her, it was the last place I wanted to go. "I'll try, but are you?" I began, but Ali cut me off and told Lucy to arrange a table for 2 at 8 o'clock. Lucy nodded and said she would take care of it. She looked at me like she thought I was being silly and smiled. I shrugged, holding back a sharp reply I wanted to say, and told her, "I'll see you there then." "No, I'll come back here. Lucy can arrange a car," she said firmly. I felt like I was being pushed too hard, and it must have shown on my face. Ali stopped what she was doing, took me by the hand, and led me into the bathroom. She closed the door behind us and pulled me into a hug. She kissed my cheek softly. "I'm sorry, Joss," she said quietly. "I know I'm moving faster than you're ready for. It's just that now I've found you again, I want to spend all my time with you. I forget this is all new and strange for you. If I want a table anywhere, one call and it's mine. I never have to wait in line for places, and, well, you know what I mean." I smiled a little but felt a bit bitter. I get it. You're a superstar. I'm just a guy with a boat. She pushed me gently back against the wall. Don't ever think that, she said firmly. I'm the one who doesn't deserve you. I made a big mistake not standing up to Mom all those years ago. I should have written or called you. I don't even know why I never got your email. I can't believe I let myself forget you. After seeing you again, all the feelings came back fast. That's why I came running after you. I could feel the emotions I had been holding in all day rise up from inside. You hurt me, I said quietly. I didn't understand why you didn't contact me. For months, I barely left the house except to go to school. I was so scared I'd miss your call. I would check the mail every day, hoping for a letter from you. My voice dropped to almost a whisper. I don't know if I can open my heart to you like that again. She held me tightly, tears running down her cheeks. She whispered, You were my best friend. I loved you when I was just 10. I broke your heart, and now I see I never stopped loving you. Please, give me another chance. I pulled back a little, but still kept hold of her. Then you need to stop trying to plan everything for me. I asked you to dinner, and now I feel like a small part in one of your stories. The last place I want to eat is that fancy restaurant again. I swallowed and sat down on the edge of the tub. She looked at me with pain. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take over, she said softly. She tried to sit next to me, but I caught her arm and pulled her closer until she was sitting on my lap. She struggled for a moment, but then relaxed and wrapped her arm around my neck. I'd like to come back here after your interview, if that's okay, she said quietly. I nodded and she smiled. When you get back, you can decide what we do, she said. I don't care what it is, as long as I get to do it with you. She shivered a little, stood up, and smiled again. Her fingers lightly brushed the back of my neck. Now, I needed Lucy to fix my makeup and pick out a good dress for my interview. She would get nervous. She didn't like it when I mixed up her plans. Wait, who is she? Didn't I tell you? No, I guess I didn't. She sighed. You have to understand, if I don't explain, people don't know what's going on. I'm used to people working with me, so I assume they know everything. Lucy is my helper, my assistant, secretary, and friend. She's very protective of me. You're a stranger to her, someone she doesn't know, and she's never seen me act like this for a man. I think it makes her worried. She took my hand, and we went back into the bedroom. Lucy looked worried but tried not to show it. What time do we need to leave for the studio? Allie asked as she sat at the desk again. Lucy looked at her phone. We have half an hour before the cars come. Let me fix your makeup. She gave me a look that said, You caused this. Lucy started fixing my makeup. After a few minutes, Allie asked, Did you call the restaurant? Yes, I did. It's booked for 2 at 8. I had to use your name. She smiled a little when she said that. Can you call and cancel it, please? Lucy's mouth opened in surprise. Why? Because that's not where Josh wanted to take me. He reminded me it was his choice, Allie said, looking at me in the mirror, and I want to see where he takes me. That was tricky. I didn't know a place in London I could take someone famous like Allie. There was one, but it was near Brighton, about 50 miles away. It was my favorite place when I lived there. 2 friends of mine owned it. Do you remember Leslie Coombs? I asked Allie. She was in school with us. Allie thought for a moment. Was she the red-haired girl with freckles? Pretty, right? That's her. She's married now and runs a small restaurant on the South Downs with her partner. We're good friends. When I lived in the flat, I ate there a lot. They were at the funeral and asked if I might come down soon to see my godchildren. It's a bit of a drive, but would you like to go there tonight? Alice's face brightened. I'd love that. I want to see Leslie again. You'll call her and see if I can get the studio to arrange a car and drive her. Jaws, I said I wouldn't interfere, but can I ask David to handle the driver? He gets a bit worried if I go out without someone watching out for me. Lucy snorted softly. A little bit. If that makes you both feel better, I'm okay with it, I said. We'll need to leave around 6. Does that work for you? I asked. She said it was fine, then quickly put on her dress and shoes. She gave me a quick kiss. Soon after, she and Lucy were being walked down the hallway by David and another female bodyguard. The room went very quiet after I closed the door. The suitcase lay on the bed with half the clothes spread out on top. It was like a small promise that she would come back. I looked up Leslie's number and called her. It didn't take long to say hello and to book a table for 2 that evening, even though the restaurant was full. "Well, always save a table for you," Leslie said. "So who's coming?" "It's a surprise. Someone you know, that's all I'll say." "Bastard. See you tonight. Oh, and if the parking lot is full, park in our driveway." After saying goodbye, I put my papers and laptop in a bag, put on a tweed jacket, and left for my meeting. The lunch meeting with my agent and publisher went into the early afternoon. It was a good meeting from my side. One independent film studio had chosen my most popular novel to work on, and because of that, they offered me a new 2-book deal to continue the story with the same characters. Back at the hotel, I ordered coffee at the bar and opened my laptop to check emails and take care of things. My phone buzzed, reminding me I had been ignoring it since last night. Julia's last message said, "Call me. How do you know her?" I had also gotten similar messages from the people I had dinner with. Julia answered when I called, right away. "Josh, how do you know Ashley Bell?" "I don't, but I do know a girl named Allison Peters who used to live next door to me. She was my first girlfriend." "Who?" Julia sounded confused. "Allison is Ashley," I said. "Remember I told you about the girl next door to my parents' house? The one who disappeared when I was 17? "Oh, that girl. I remember you talking about her," she said slowly. "Did you know she was Ashley before last night?" "I found out a few years ago, but it was very hard to reach her. Last night was the first time I'd seen her in years. She said she was an old friend when we talked to her last night. We gave her your number and told her where you were staying. Was that okay?" She sounded worried. "She left quickly after you. Did she find you?" "She did," I told her. "We talked and cleared up some things. We're meeting again tonight." I didn't tell her we had stayed close overnight. Julia was known for gossip, and I wanted to keep things private. "Listen, Julia, please keep this quiet. I don't want my photo all over the newspapers." "Okay," she said, sounding a bit sad. "Can I tell the others how you know her?" "I guess so, but tell them exactly the same story, please." I ended the call and leaned back in my chair, feeling a bit relaxed. The waitress brought me fresh coffee, and I went back to checking my emails. That didn't take long, so I decided to look up Ashley Bell online. I hadn't done that since I got those email rejections a couple of years ago. As I was reading an article, a man in a suit with a badge came over. He looked like the manager on duty. "Mr. Thomas," he said carefully, "we have a request to move you to one of the top-floor suites." I looked at him, surprised. I hadn't asked for that. Then I felt a sick feeling inside. Allison was behind this again, trying to control things. I liked my room and was annoyed she thought I would just do what she wanted. "I didn't ask for a room change," I said. "I'm happy where I am." I looked back at my laptop, hoping that would be the end of it. The man stayed there quietly for a moment. Then he cleared his throat, and I looked up again. "She insisted on moving you. The room service manager packed your things and moved them. Here are your new key cards." He held out a folder with the cards. No way was I going to just go along with that. I liked Allie, but I had my own life, and no matter how I felt about her, I wasn't expecting anything serious. I didn't want to change my plans just because of her. I was glad I hadn't changed my flight. I wouldn't be staying in London long. "Put my things back in the room I booked," I said sharply. I said I'm happy where I am. "The lady was very clear you should have the best room," the man said nervously. "And honestly, she scares me more than you do." "I don't need to scare you. I just need to check out and find another place if my things aren't back where I want them." I closed my laptop and sighed. Then I stood up. "I'm going to sign for my drinks and go back to my room. If my things aren't there, I'm out of here." The man looked worried, then really panicked as he looked toward the bar entrance. I turned and saw Ali and her group coming in. The manager hurried over and bent down to whisper something in Lucy's ear. She looked at him with surprise and then glanced at me, thinking carefully. I thought to myself, interesting. It wasn't Allison he was scared of, it was Lucy. I wondered if Allison knew about the room change. I paid for my coffee just before Allison walked over and gave me a hug. I felt a little awkward returning it, and she noticed. "Is everything okay, Joss?" she asked. Yes, I stretched the word, then shook my head. No, not really. What did I say about not wanting to be told what to do? When I came back, I was told not asked that I had to move to another room. If you didn't like my room, you could have asked me first instead of just changing it and canceling the old one. I didn't do that. I just said it would be different not staying in a big suite. Not worse, just different. She looked at Lucy, but Lucy stared back with a firm look. Will you come and stay at my apartment? Allison asked quietly. I shook my head. Staying there would feel the same as moving to the hotel room. Then I thought of something else. I still had a key to my flat in Brighton. It was empty for now because the new tenants wouldn't move in for a few weeks. You could come stay at my flat. It's empty right now. I just had it redecorated and ready for new renters, I said. Allison thought about it, then pressed her lips together. I'd like that. It's in Brighton, right? I nodded. We could take the car to the restaurant and then go to the flat afterward. Allison agreed and called Lucy and her bodyguard over. She told them about the new plan. Lucy didn't look happy, but David, the bodyguard, only asked if the building was safe. I told him, there's a lobby with a security desk that is manned, and the elevators only work with a key. David nodded. That should be fine. Allison spoke to Lucy, asking her to go to the apartment, pack some clothes for Allison, and bring them back. I got the duty manager, who was nearby, to bring my bags down, and I checked out. While we waited for Lucy, we sat in the bar. David and another guard stood in the lobby, keeping an eye on us, the entrance, and the limousine waiting for us that evening. The traffic out of London was slow, but it got better once we joined the M23 motorway. David asked me for the flat keys so one of his team, who was driving a second car, could drop off our bags. I gave him a note for the security desk to allow access to the flat. Allison had given Lucy a few days off and arranged to meet her at her apartment on Saturday to prepare for the film premiere that night. Only David went with Allison and me, sitting next to the driver. Allison was eager to hear about what had happened to me over the years and kept asking questions. I was happy to answer, but I began to see that she was much quieter when I asked her questions. She would only give short answers or change the topic. She kept saying her life was an open book because the press had made sure of that. Yet, when we arrived at the gastropub, the Downs, an hour later, I wasn't sure I knew anything more about her than what I had found on the internet. That information was full of guesses and not many facts. The Downs sat in a small valley on the north side of the South Downs. It was a big old barn turned into a restaurant, about 50 yards from the thatched cottage where Leslie and her partner lived with their 2 children. The parking lot was full, so I told the driver to use the driveway by the cottage, even though it was marked private. Samantha, Leslie's partner, must have been waiting for me. The cottage door opened, and she smiled when she saw me getting out of the car. Their 5-year-old daughter, Jilly, was on her hip. I hadn't told Allie much about my friends who owned the place. Allie had known Leslie at school, but didn't know she lived with another woman. I only learned about Leslie's partner because one night at a party, a very drunk Leslie said it was sad she was gay since I was the only man she had ever seriously liked. Later, when she was less drunk, she asked me not to tell anyone. I kept that secret for years until Leslie told the truth herself. I met Samantha when I worked for a travel company just after university. We worked in the same office and became friends. We often had drinks at lunch, sometimes ate out and saw movies together. That was all, just friends who enjoyed each other's company. When I moved to a flat in Brighton, I had a housewarming party and invited all my friends, including Sam and Leslie. They got along well, and that was the start of their life together. No, I'm not the father of their children, but I am their godfather. Good you're here, Samantha said as she came over and gave me a hug. Jilly slipped from her mother's arms and wrapped her arms around my neck. I missed you, Uncle Joss. Mommy said we are going to your boat. When do we go? Soon, baby girl, I replied. In the summer? Jilly asked. I looked at Sam and she nodded. I can swim now, Jilly added, then looked past me. Who's the pretty lady? I turned to see where she was looking. Jilly, this is Allison. She's an old friend of your Mama Leslie. Allie smiled at the girl in my arms and came over to say hello. Jilly studied Allison with a serious look only a 5-year-old can give. It seemed Allison passed the test, as Jilly reached out with a cute, "Carry me." Allie picked her up, and Jilly settled happily against her, letting out a soft laugh. I heard them talking quietly, but I couldn't catch the words. Sam took my arm and said, "Josh, isn't that the actress, Ashley Bell?" I nodded and said softly, "Yes, she is." She went to school with Leslie and me, but back then we knew her as Allison. Sam looked closely into my eyes and whispered, sounding worried, "She is the Allison you and Leslie told me about? The girl who disappeared in your last year?" The question was clear. "The one who had hurt you?" "That's her. I saw her in London yesterday." It's strange. Leslie always said when we watched her films that she reminded her of a girl from school, but since we thought she was American, we never connected the two. Suddenly, the sound of a scooter coming up to the cottage interrupted us. A young girl got off, took off her helmet, and looked at Sam with a puzzled face. "That's our au pair," Sam said. Then she spoke a little louder. "Look, he'll take Jilly. It's past her bedtime. He'll get her settled and then come over." Allison gave Jilly to Sam with some hesitation. I finally introduced Allison to Samantha. The fact that our school friend was a lesbian in a relationship didn't bother Allison, except she asked one thing carefully. "Is Jilly your daughter or Leslie's?" She sounded unsure. "She called you both Mama." Sam smiled and said, "We don't really make a big difference between us. But Jilly is Leslie's, and Luke is mine. They have the same father." Allison looked at me confused, and I shook my head. "No, it's not me." "Josh knows the story," Sam said. "We can explain everything later, but I need to put Jilly to bed now. She's almost asleep." Sam took Jilly inside, and I walked with Allison toward the downs. David came with us, but showed us he would wait at the bar. The woman at the hostess desk smiled when she saw me and said my name. It had been a couple of years since I last came, and I was glad she remembered me. When she saw Allison with me, her eyes got wide. She showed us to our table. It was a round table in a small corner, away from the kitchen, with a clear view of what was happening there. This was the chef's table, usually saved for the chef's friends. It could fit 6 people, but tonight only 2 seats were ready. Leslie quickly came over when she saw us. She was a beautiful woman with red hair, dressed in a chef's uniform and an apron. Both Leslie and Sam worked in the business, Leslie in the kitchen, and Sam in front of the house. "Wow, Allison, is that you?" Leslie said, holding out her arms. They hugged and then stepped back. "Hi, Leslie. Motherhood really suits you." "Thanks, I think." "You are her, aren't you?" Allison laughed softly. "I'm still that girl from school." "But you're Ashley Bell now?" Allison nodded. Then her face turned pale as Leslie spoke calmly. "We all know Ashley is a big movie star. But my question is to the Allison I remember. Not Ashley, are you back here to fix the harm you caused? I saw how Josh was after you left. He's my friend, my kid's godfather, and I won't let you hurt him again. Are you going to stay this time or run away again?" I didn't know what to say. I'd always known Leslie liked me, but even I was surprised by the anger in her voice. She smiled at me and then sat back, waiting for Alice's answer. It took her a moment to collect herself. "The only reason I'll leave him is if Josh asks me to," she said. "I'm not sure he believes me, but I've already told him I still care for him." Allie paused, thinking hard, then said, "I didn't run away, Leslie. I was taken away. I didn't have a choice, or at least I thought I didn't. My big mistake was believing the story my mother and her boyfriend told me and letting them stop me from contacting Josh." Leslie didn't look convinced, and I was curious too. Allie squeezed my hand gently and added, "I don't think I'd have been so easily fooled if Josh had been there. But he wasn't, and everything just slipped away. By the time I could think things through, we were already in the States, staying in a small cabin far from anyone." She shrugged. "There was no phone, no cell service, no internet, just the lake and trees. Oh, and a mama bear with her babies. I couldn't reach anyone. Mom said she'd send a message to Josh with our new address, but I think she lied. I waited for him to call or write, but he never did. She saw I was about to say something and put her finger to my lips. I know you couldn't contact me then, but back then, I guessed maybe you were too angry with me to want to reach out." I looked at her. This didn't fully match what she'd told me before, but it seemed to make Leslie feel better. She sat down again, and a few moments later, Sam came over. Allie and Leslie had been friends at school, not best friends, but still friends. They started catching up, wanting to know what had happened since they last met. You know, Allie told me, Leslie was the one girl I was jealous of in school. She and you seemed so close. But, yes, she wasn't interested in men, Allie said. But I didn't know that back then. Oh, I wouldn't say that, Sam added. I know he is the only man she's ever really thought about that way. We were both surprised when he said no to our request. She even said he could help in a natural way. It's true, Leslie said, laughing softly. I said I'd lie back and think of England while you took care of things. I felt shy, and Allie laughed quietly. I told you before I was moving away, I said. I couldn't let you have a child of mine and then not be there to help raise it. But I was tempted. Sam added, he said no to me too, but we had our own way to get back. We made him the children's godfather. Who is the father? Allie asked. No idea, and I don't want to know, Leslie said. It was all done through a clinic. We gave them a list of what we wanted, and both used the same anonymous donor. Sam laughed and said, what she's not telling you is the list was to find someone who looked the most like him, and she pointed at me. The meal was very good, and it was late before we said goodbye. I went into the cottage and kissed my godchildren goodnight while they slept. Then we drove the 20 minutes to my apartment. One of David's security team was sitting at the front desk with the building's doorman. David walked us to my apartment door and told us to let him know if we planned to go anywhere unsafe. I closed the door behind us and walked across the room while Allie went to look out the tall windows. The view of the path along the water and the beach was one reason Id bought the apartment. We were moving into new territory for us. This woman had been the love of my life as I grew up, but we'd never been close. We had shared many moments of closeness, and there was no part of her I hadn't cared for, but I had agreed to wait until her 18th birthday before we took a bigger step together. Allie watched me carefully, and I could tell she was thinking about our future too. How many bedrooms? She asked directly. 2, I answered. You can take the guest room. She sighed, frustrated, and stepped closer, looking up at me. That's not going to happen. I'm here so we can reconnect and get back to how things used to be. Reconnect, I thought. Not maybe reconnect. It seemed to me she had already made up her mind. I started to feel anger. She was so used to getting her way that she didn't care about my feelings. No, I said. You need to understand, I'm scared about committing to you. I'll accept that you had no choice when your mother took you to the States. But I can't accept that you never tried to reach out. It's not like you didn't know how to find me. My parents still live in the same house. I told you why. Her voice softened as she saw the look on my face. She took a deep breath and turned to look outside. America was very different from anything I'd ever known, she said, not looking at me. Yes, I missed you, but in those first few months, so much was happening. Plus, Mom was very scared that Dad might find us, so I kept putting off trying to contact you. I honestly thought you'd reach out to me. She glanced at me to see if I was listening or just enjoying the view. I was listening, so she went on. I thought about you all the time that first year, but as I got busy with school and then college, I started thinking about you less. She looked a bit shy saying that. I asked, how often did you think about me last year? Only once, she said. On your birthday. I have a birthday reminder on my phone, and Lucy asked me who you were. I laughed. So, I'm just a birthday memory. She smiled softly. You're so much more than that. I cried when I realized how long it had been since I last saw you. Remembering how much I missed you was the main reason I ended things with Simon. I wasn't sure what to think. Was I supposed to believe I was the reason she broke up with her last boyfriend? But you didn't know what had happened to me. I could have been married or even gone. She laughed. You're definitely not gone, and you told me you're not married. Then she got serious. I finished my last project last month, and I decided not to start anything new until I found you. I even reached out to a detective agency to try to find you when suddenly there you were. I didn't know what to say. Allie, I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm glad you wanted to get in touch. It's a shame it didn't happen 2 years ago, but that's in the past. I'm going to bed now. You're welcome to join me, but he'll understand if you don't. We have a couple of days to see if there's still something between us before you need to be in London. Let's just wait and see, okay? She nodded, took my hand, and led me to the bedroom. What's going to happen is we'll share your bed and do what we should have done years ago. She let go of my hand and waved at me to go to the kitchen. As she walked ahead, she told me to bring some water and snacks. You're going to tire me out until I'm completely worn out, and I'm not letting you off until that happens. Given the choice, I did what anyone in my place would do. I grabbed a pack of water bottles from the fridge and a packet of chocolate biscuits, glad that David's people had stocked the kitchen. I was in my underwear when I went into the bedroom. She didn't waste any time. She wrapped her arms around me right away. She hooked a leg around mine and, with a small move, helped me fall back onto the bed. She leaned over me, making me catch my breath. The water and biscuits slipped from my hands and landed on the covers. "Wow, Allie," I said, trying to breathe again. She laughed softly and gave me a quick, playful kiss while using her hand to help me get more comfortable. She shivered as we lay side by side, her energy calming down for a moment. She turned to look at my face, her fingers moving like mine as I gently touched her. "You should have been my first," she whispered, her eyes wide and sad. "I didn't keep my promise to you." She took my hand and pressed it to her chest. "I want you to know everything about me," she said softly. "There's nothing you can't explore." Her words surprised me. I couldn't hide how interested I was. Then she got up suddenly and took a small box from her bag. "I almost forgot," she said, holding out the box in her open hand. It was an old green velvet box. I caught my breath. She still had it. I had saved my money and given her the gold heart and chain inside on her 16th birthday. She opened the box, and the little gold heart sat on soft cloth inside. The chain looked different when I picked up the pendant. "I wore it until the chain broke and couldn't be fixed," Allie said. "I found a similar one, but it never felt quite right. The original is sewn under the lining. The thin, worn gold chain, the best I could afford then, was exactly where she said it was. It had broken in 2 places, with the clasp missing. The new chain was better and stronger. On the back of the heart were our initials, almost rubbed off from time." She lowered her head. "I've waited a long time for you to put this back on me." "I can't believe you still have it," I said as I fastened the chain around her neck. "It's always in my travel bag. The heart has never left me since you gave it to me." What followed was amazing. It's hard to find words that truly describe it, the feelings, the connection, the deep closeness we shared. It was like nothing else mattered but us together. We had both been waiting for this moment for a long time, ever since we promised to be together as teenagers. Our bodies moved close and apart, sharing feelings of happiness and excitement. Allie kept her word. We didn't leave the bedroom for a whole day. The bathroom was just behind a wall, so it was still part of the room. If you left the French doors open, the balcony felt like part of the space, too. We shared quiet, loving moments on the bed, in the shower, in the bath, and on the balcony. There were a few other spots I can't quite remember before hunger pulled us out of our safe place after 24 hours. Allie was careful walking, so we went to buy fish and chips at the late-night shop. Sitting on the beach and eating from the paper, the food tasted better than any fancy meal either of us had ever had. The lights from the West Pier shone on the sea, and the waves made gentle sounds on the stones. We licked the salt and vinegar from our fingers and thought about where we stood in our relationship. I finally broke the quiet. "How do you see this working? We live very different lives. Do we both change, or are you thinking I should change?" She smiled softly. "I don't want you to change. I want to be the one to adjust. I'm lucky, Joss. I don't have to work anymore. Do you have the money now, or just want it? If the right chance came up, I'd tell you everything and let you decide. So if I gave you a chance, would you think about it?" She spoke quietly, with the sound of the waves behind her. "It depends." "Depends on what?" "On what the chance is. It's the same chance I told you about years ago, a life filled with love and the chance to have a family." She rested her head on my shoulder. "I think that's an easy offer to say yes to, but there's a cost," she said, moving her hand toward me and gently tapping her ring finger. I thought about the ring I had ready for her after coming back from Australia. It had been my grandmother's ring, given to me by my parents. It was a big, beautiful diamond with sapphires on the sides. It had been in our family for over 100 years. For a long time, I wore it on a chain around my neck. I kept it close because I expected Allie to come back so I could give it to her. Now it was locked safely at my bank. "I had a ring for you," I whispered. "I brought it back with me from Australia." Her smile faded, and she let out a small sound. "You bought me a ring?" I shook my head, trying to lighten the mood. "I was too young to buy the ring you deserved. It was a family ring, Gran's ring. It's been passed down for many years." "That sounds just right," she said with hope. "Do you still have it?" I nodded. "I keep it safe at the bank." Then I turned her gently to face me. "Allie, if you really mean all this, I'll get it tomorrow and put it on your finger. But if you're not sure or it's just a passing feeling, just tell me to leave it where it is." She held my face in her hands and pulled me close. She kissed me softly, full of feeling, and my heart skipped a beat. She pulled back and said with strong feeling, "I've waited a long time for this. I'm not going to let you go." "So that's a yes?" I asked. "You're silly. Of course it is." The music from the DJ in the far room was loud. The heavy beat filled the whole club, even where the distributor's party was. Again that night I wondered what I was doing there. I missed the calm of my boat. I hoped that finally putting the ring on her finger would help ease my worries. The ring said she was mine, but inside I still felt unsure. I was still a bit unsure as we headed back to London for the premiere of her new movie, a romantic comedy. The premiere went as smoothly as these things usually do. The room was full of important and not so important people, with some from the royal family too. I was moved aside during the meet and greet in the lobby. It surprised me that I was even allowed to sit next to Allie during the film. Lucy had worked hard to get me a last-minute invitation. It wasn't until after the film, during the interviews, that the reporters saw the ring on Allie's finger. She hadn't worn it when we arrived. She waited until the movie ended to put it on. "I don't want the press making a big deal about us before the event," she said in the car as I noticed her take it off. "I don't want us to be the focus. I'll wear it after, I promise." When many people asked about us, she kept saying, "I've reconnected with my oldest friend, my first boyfriend," and held my hand tightly. I couldn't catch all the questions shouted at us, but one kept coming up. They kept asking when she had ended things with Simon and if she had given back his ring. "You were engaged? I thought you had broken up long before that dinner at the restaurant," I whispered quietly in her ear. She kept smiling and softly said, "We were never really engaged. I thought he understood that we ended things months ago." "And the ring?" I asked. "I never accepted it." Then we got in the car. She and Lucy were busy on their phones for the whole 10-minute drive to the nightclub where the after-party was. I wanted to ask many questions, but I had no chance. When we arrived, I pulled her aside to a quiet corner where we could talk. I had to stop Lucy from joining us. David stayed near the door to keep away any unwanted people. "Tell me about Simon," I said. "Were you engaged? When did you break up? I thought it was over between you two, but now I'm not sure." Then a worried thought came to me. "Are you still seeing him?" "No," she said clearly, looking me straight in the eyes. "I am only in one relationship, and that is with you." She waited to see if I believed her. When I didn't say anything, she continued. "I liked Simon when we worked together last year. He was fun, but that was it. I might have let him think I was more interested, but I wasn't." "What do you mean?" "He wanted to get married, and I kept avoiding the subject, but I never said no directly. He was nice, but he wasn't you. Somehow the press thought we were engaged." She shook her head. "We weren't. At least, that's what I thought." "Then why were you at that restaurant with him?" "That was not a date. We hadn't seen each other for a few months. We just wanted to catch up. He told me about a new project that might interest me, but that wasn't his main plan. He wanted us to get back together. He kept talking about marriage and wanted to tell the press about our engagement. When your friend came over asking for an autograph, I was happy for the distraction. Usually, I don't like people coming up to me in restaurants." Simon was annoyed by the interruption. "Oh. Yes, just oh. That was as far as he got when I saw you. Seeing you at your table ended everything. I like him as a friend, but there was no spark anymore. I just said no more and rushed to find you. You know what happened next. Ash, Lucy called from the entrance. Ash, you need to get out there. Everyone is waiting. I'm running out of excuses for you. Darn, Allie muttered. Joss, I have to go mix with everyone. That's what the film company wants from their stars. But I want you beside me. I took her hand and we went into the noisy crowd. It wasn't a party. It felt more like a big work event full of talk and eyes watching us. I was just there to support Allie, the main focus of attention. I was someone people barely noticed or often misunderstood. I must have been asked the same question many times. Don't you feel bad for breaking up Simon and Ashley? They were such a great couple. At least the reporters listened when we explained. We said we had known each other for a long time, going back to when we were teenagers. Ali tried to answer questions about Simon by saying she thought there was more to their story than people knew. But you were supposed to be engaged, they said. No, we weren't, just close friends, Ali replied. Then she would show the ring on her finger. I'm engaged to Josh, and we plan to get married as soon as we can. After a while, the reporters moved on to other stories. That left me open to how Alice's friends, co-workers, and Simon would treat me. Her friends quickly brought Allie into their group, and I was left standing outside. I thought she would stay by my side, but after a few quick looks, she seemed to leave me behind. Lucy came and stood next to me. They don't know you, she said. They're nervous about what your relationship with Ash might mean for them. Many of them get work in movies because of her advice. She's already told her agent she won't take new roles for now, so they're worried. That's okay, I said. But I hope they know it's her choice to slow down, not mine. I told Allie I have my own life, and if she wants to join me, that's fine. Will her decision affect your work? Only a little. I work for her directly, and she said she'll keep me on. My job might change some, but I don't mind. Honestly, if it means a calmer life, I'm all for it. But don't the stories about her, her past boyfriends, and wild parties bother you? Not more than she should worry about what I've been doing. Allie didn't have a choice when her mother took her away. She has been living her own life for the past 12 years. Am I upset she didn't try to contact me when she could? Maybe. But I don't know what was going on, so how can I judge her? I looked at Lucy, trying to see what she was thinking. It's strange to hear you call her Allie. I've only ever known her as Ashley. She's over there talking to an old boyfriend, and the guy next to her seems to want to keep that ex out of the picture. Doesn't that bother you? Honestly, it did. Allie was standing with a small group, and the man next to her had his hand resting closely on her shoulder. I knew he was an American tennis player because he had made a scene when he lost in the first round at Wimbledon last year. His name was something like Brad or Ben, starting with a B. She went out with him, I asked. Not really, Lucy replied. Maybe a few dinners and some parties. It was more in his head and the gossip magazines. He's not her only ex here. I can see at least 2 others. She nodded toward the bar. And of course, there's Simon. Hez here? I looked over and saw him. Was she serious with any of them? Lucy thought a moment. I've known her 6 years, and during that time she had some casual relationships. The 6 months with Simon was the only time she seemed serious. But even then, she felt a bit distant. When her phone reminded her of her birthday, that was the end of him. I looked back at the group around Allie and said, I think it's time I find out where I stand with her. Lucy grabbed my arm as I moved. Be careful, she said. She doesn't like to be interrupted when she's talking. Ever since I've known her, she doesn't like it when people come up to her at parties. If she wants to talk to someone, she'll call them over or join their group. Am I people? I asked. I don't know what you are yet, she smiled. Let's find out. I walked over and stood beside Allie. She was talking to the tennis player whose hand was gently resting on her shoulder. When she noticed me nearby, she stopped speaking. Her smile faded for a moment, then suddenly returned as she saw who I was. She shrugged off his arm and stepped closer to me, closing the space between us. She looked up and pulled me into a quick kiss. Ash, who's this? The tennis player asked, sounding annoyed by my interruption. His face showed a flash of anger. He tried to put his arm back around her, but she stopped him. Billy, this is my fiancé, Josh. Hez the one I've loved since I was 8. Oh, that's right, that was his name. Billy Gonzalez. Your fiancé? But I thought you and I? Allie gave a sad smile. No, you and I are just good friends. That's all you'll ever be. He looked at her for a moment, then walked away, muttering something under his breath. The rest of the group turned to look at me, and I smiled back. It was clear they did not feel comfortable with me, an outsider who was there to take the queen bee from the group. Allie tried her best to introduce me to everyone, including some of her closest friends. But it soon became clear they were from a different world than mine, one I didn't want to be part of. Their talks were quick and full of inside jokes I didn't understand. They spoke about people I didn't know and cared little about. Slowly, Allie stopped trying to include me. After a few minutes of being ignored, I gave up and moved to the bar, hoping for a good drink. I called the bartender and asked for a large malt whiskey. Taking the glass, I leaned against the bar and watched Allie. She was the most beautiful woman there, like a queen bee taking the attention of her helpers, while others moved around her. This was exactly what I had feared, and I wished I hadn't waited before leaving for my boat. Time went by as people came and went around her. I was on my third drink, feeling uneasy but not surprised that she had not come back to me. Suddenly, someone spoke beside me. "You won't last. None of her boyfriends ever do." "Well, except me," said Simon. I looked at him. "I checked you out," he said. "You're just a small-time reporter living on a boat. Do you really think she'll be happy living that sort of life with you for long?" His usually nice face looked angry. I had tried to be kind to him for Alice's sake, but he was making it hard. "That's her choice," I said. "She knows what I am, and I'm not going to change." "So, how long did you last?" He smiled with a little twist. "What makes you think she's over me?" I looked toward Alice's group. "Well, you're not there," I said, "and neither is she." "I'm happy you're here," he said, laughing. "I'll give her a few weeks. She'll come back to me. We've been together for a year. How does it feel to be second choice?" I replied, "I think that's the other way around. I first knew her 22 years ago. Well, I supposed holding hands as kids counted in this strange game of who's closer to Ali, but I wasn't going to say that to him." I smiled at the anger in his eyes. Then I stood tall and took his hand in mine. His skin was smooth from working with ropes. Mine was rough from hard work. No matter how Ali felt about him, I knew I couldn't like Simon. My grip was strong and steady, something I learned from years at sea. Simon winced as I squeezed his hand and pulled him closer. I whispered, "I don't like you. If you ever talk about Ali like that again—" I paused and tightened my grip until I heard his knuckles crack. He gasped sharply, trying to pull his hand away. "You won't be able to use your hand for a month." I let go and he staggered back, his face pale from the sudden pain. He held his hand close to his chest and quickly walked away. "Better not get on your bad side," Lucy said from my other side. She was sitting on a bar stool, one leg crossed over the other, her long legs showing. In her hand was a tall glass full of ice, fruit slices, and a straw. "Oh, and he's lying. He and Ash haven't been seeing each other since last summer. He's always been a sore loser," she added. "Ah," I said. I like that word because it can mean many things depending on how you say it. Lucy looked me over carefully. "She doesn't mean to do it," she said, pointing her glass toward Allie. Drops of water rolled down the glass, falling on her legs. Allie was standing in the middle of a small group of men I didn't know. They clearly knew her well because she was relaxed and happy with them. She laughed and talked closely with the men, joining their group easily. "Are there any other exes I should worry about?" I asked. Lucy looked at the group over her drink. "There's a couple," she said, pointing to a tall man. "She went on a trip with him a few years ago. They planned to be away a month, but she came back after only a few days. There's no one else I know she cared about seriously." She tapped her finger on the glass, thinking. "Maybe Antonio," she said, pointing at the man standing next to Allie. "Has not an ex," I said sharply. "I don't mean they are still together. They had a few short things in the past, but he's been trying for years to get her to be with him full time. He hasn't succeeded, but he keeps trying." The man was good-looking, with features like someone from Southern Europe. He looked about 38 and wore a very nice Armani suit. His hand rested gently on Alice's arm. "Who is he?" I asked. "His father is Maurizio Rossi," Lucy said like she thought I should know. I gave her a blank look, showing I didn't have a clue. She sighed at my surprise. Of the Rossi fashion house. He's supposed to be their fashion ambassador. As far as I can tell, that means he travels all over the world, paid for by the company, and is often seen with important people. I doubt if he's even on tonight's guest list, but no doorman would turn him away. And Allie likes him? She laughed softly. It really is strange to hear you call her Allie. You're probably the only person here who knows Ashley isn't her real name. I've only ever known her as Ashley. Antonio, I reminded her. Oh, yes. Well, I guess so. They're friends, and he seems nice enough. I know Ash likes meeting people he knows and going to places with him, so I guess she's happy to spend time with him. Alice's bright laugh came to us during a quiet moment in the music. She lifted her cheek, and Antonio kissed it. Her head turned a little more, and she saw me watching. She noticed the look on my face and stepped away from her group, leaving them looking surprised. Antonio started to follow, but stopped as he watched her. Her face lit up in a big smile, and she almost skipped over to me. "Hey, lover, miss me," she said with a soft giggle, but also a little nervousness. "For 12 years, I answered with a dry tone and immediately felt sorry for saying it. Her smile faded, and she looked back at the people she had left. She looked guilty, realizing I had been standing alone for more than half an hour. "Why didn't you come join us?" she asked. I raised my eyebrows. "I was there, but after a few moments you and your friends ignored me. I didn't see a point in standing around like I didn't belong." I took a sip from my glass. "So I found my own way to have fun." Allie looked a bit embarrassed and swallowed hard before asking Lucy, "Were you part of his fun too?" Lucy answered, "No way. If anything, he was part of mine. You missed him showing an annoying Simon the door. It was fun to watch." Alice's energy seemed to drop in front of us. She looked around and turned to Lucy. "Asking Josh to come with me here was a bad idea, wasn't it?" Lucy nodded. "I keep forgetting he's not used to this kind of madness, the need to meet and talk to so many people," Allie said. "It all seems so fake to me," I added. "But it's interesting watching you with these people. I don't know how you put up with it." "I'm sad to say I've gotten used to it." I gave a small laugh of disbelief. "Hey, I said I got used to it. Not that I like it," Allie said as she moved closer to me. "Do you have to stay long?" I asked, hoping she didn't. Allie sighed. "A little longer, I'm afraid. We have to do a few more interviews. It should be interesting, especially since I've told the press about my poor old boyfriend being my partner and soon-to-be husband." She pointed toward the calm camera crews waiting patiently for her and her co-star. "Less of the old stuff, if you don't mind. I'm only 4 weeks older than you," I said with a smile. "Oh no, my mom warned me about dating older guys," Allie teased. I heard Lucy laugh behind me. Allie gave me a quick kiss. My hand moved down her back, and I gently touched her. She leaned into my hand and whispered, "Thanks. I'm going to leave you in Lucy's good care while I get the rest of my co-stars so we can finish here. You'll be back as soon as we wrap up, and then you'll take me home. My old boyfriend will keep holding me close and spoiling me." She didn't wait for a reply and walked back to the group she had left before. After a few moments, she and her co-star were taken to a spot set up for TV interviews. I wondered if I should go to support her, but then Lucy touched my shoulder and shook her head. "Let her be. She'll just get nervous if she sees you watching. You'll keep an eye on her." I nodded. This was Alice's time. I didn't want to bother her. The interviews were supposed to only take 10 minutes each, but the second group took over 20 minutes to get ready. Allie sat in a makeup chair with Lucy nearby, waiting for the interviewer to finish. Most of her friends moved around the room, splitting into small groups, then joining new ones. I noticed Antonio standing quietly by the camera crews, watching closely. After about an hour, the interviews ended and Allie started walking back to me. But before she could get far, Antonio stopped her and spoke softly. She changed direction and followed him to where some of her so-called friends were waiting. Her group moved together, forming around her. That was enough. So much for "I'll be right back." I walked over. Allie was standing with her back to me, talking to Antonio. Eve never liked social events, especially the part where you have to join a group of people you don't know well. Faces turn toward you, conversations stop, and then the quiet stretches out until you quietly leave feeling awkward. I stepped into the circle, causing those moments of silence again. Allie turned around to see what was going on. What I wanted to say was, "It's time for all of you to leave." But I didn't. I held back my anger and stayed quiet. I was pretty sure if I said anything, I'd regret it later. So I just looked at her, tapped my watch, and waited. Allie seemed like she wasn't really seeing me. Then she looked right at me, gave a small nod, and said she was leaving. "Ashley, we're going in my car," Antonio said, putting his hand on Alice's arm. "No way." "No, you're not," I said sharply. "Allie, Ashley and I are going home, and you're not invited." "No, you're wrong. I asked Ash to come to my hotel for drinks, and she said yes just now." He smirked. "I didn't ask you?" "What?" "Allie, what's he talking about?" I asked, moving closer to her, my anger showing. Allie looked confused and glanced between him and me. Behind me, I heard a quiet laugh. Two big men stepped forward near me, acting tense, but stopped when David appeared beside me. "Allie, what's happening?" I asked again. She looked frozen, like she was stuck and didn't know what to do. David touched my shoulder gently. "He'll handle this," he said quietly. Then he stood next to Allie and moved between her and Antonio. With his back to Antonio and the guards, David faced Allie. Lucy and another one of Alice's security walked the crowd away until it was just Allie, Antonio, David, and me. Antonio's guards stayed nearby, watching David and sometimes looking at me. "Ash, what's going on? Did you agree to go with him?" David asked Allie quietly. She blinked a few times and said, "What? Who? Did you say yes to Mr. Ross's invitation? I need to know so I can change the security plan." That wasn't what I thought he would do when he said he'd handle it. I stayed silent but felt angry. People near me stepped back a bit. Allie shut her mouth tight and stood up straight. She looked at David, then Antonio, and finally at me. No, she said, unsure. "Tony, I'm sorry if you misunderstood, but I am going home with my fiancé." Antonio's face fell like a child who just lost his favorite toy. I got the feeling he wasn't used to being told no. Then Allie came over and gave me a quick hug. "Sorry," she whispered. "He asked if I wanted a drink, and I thought it meant here. I should have remembered he often sets up small private parties after these events." "I'm guessing you've been his guest at one before?" She took my hand as Daniel led us out of the room. Her voice was quiet as we walked, so only I could hear. "I haven't always been perfect, Joss. So yes, I've spent time with him a few times, but the last time was over a year ago." She smiled, but there was a bit of sadness in her eyes. "These things happen. You'll run into people I've been with before, and some might try to make you feel bad about it. I was wondering how many you've seen tonight." And maybe she guessed. "I promise I won't hide my past from you, but I won't make a big deal about it either. To be open, there are only two here tonight. You've met Simon already, and then there's Tony." When she said his name, I looked over my shoulder to see if he was near us. I couldn't spot him, but I saw a group walking towards the exit. "And what about Billy?" I asked. Allie put her arm around my waist. "Not him. That was more his hope than reality. I wasn't with many people, only a few over the years. But I stayed friends with some, so you'll probably meet most of them eventually." She smiled gently. "Some I'm sure you'll like, but they are all part of my past." Then her smile faded. "There are a few I wasn't really happy with, even when I was with them. What about you? Any past girlfriends I should know about?" I gave her a small half-smile. "Not anyone I was serious with. I live on a boat, so it's mostly been short holiday romances. Once a girl worked with me for a year, but she went back to school in the States." We waited outside the club for our car. Allie was signing autographs for some fans when Antonio and his security guards caught up to us. His friendly smile was gone, replaced by a sharp expression. He stepped close to Allie. "You don't say no when I ask you to come with me. You will get in my car," he said quietly but firmly. "You're with me tonight because I said so." Allie looked uneasy. David and I moved closer to her just as Antonio's limousine arrived behind ours. Our driver opened the car door. "She said no," I said calmly. David stepped forward, standing between Allie and Antonio. "Mr. Rossi, you need to step back. Miss Bell has made it clear she's not interested tonight or any time in the future. You're causing a scene, and the press is loving it." His words were met with flashes from cameras and loud questions from reporters. Antonio's security team pulled him toward his waiting limo, ending the situation. Allie and I got into our car. Once again, I thought about what kind of trouble I had gotten myself into. Part 2. The Mediterranean love lost and found. I was back where I felt most at ease, no longer feeling like someone who didn't belong. The wind made a soft sound as it moved through the boat's ropes, and the gentle rocking of the lost girl at anchor was like a soothing lullaby. It helped me sleep well and wake up calm. We had flown into Malta late the night before, after spending the day at my flat in Brighton. The feeling of tension from Saturday evening was still bothering me as I sat on the plane. We had taken a private plane, but that wasn't my choice. I would have been fine with a cheap flight. David and Allie didn't agree. They thought flying cheaply wasn't the right image for Team Ashley. I had suggested flying British Airways business class, but David and Lucy said no. They said the usual plans were already made. When I said there was no room on the boat for David or anyone else from the security team, he smiled. Lucy was unhappy because Allie told her there was no space for her on the boat either. She had to stay in a hotel with other security team members. David had picked the hotel because it looked out over the marina and the lost girl's spot in the water. He didn't seem worried. "Don't worry," he said with a smile. "We are always near whenever Ashley is around." I wondered how they would follow us once I set sail in a few days. His attitude made me think about leaving it all behind, but I didn't. I just said, "Remember, I didn't ask her to come. She came on her own. So just don't get in my way when we are on the boat." The next morning, early sunlight sparkled on the water like shining stones. I sat on the cabin roof with my first coffee of the day. Wearing shorts, I quietly left the cabin without waking Ali, who was still asleep. I filled the coffee machine with water, put in a coffee pod, and made myself a cup. Holding the warm mug, I watched the busy marina wake up with the new day. This was my world. Even though Allie said this was what she wanted, I couldn't help but wonder if I was still dreaming because of everything that had happened in the last few days. I drank my coffee slowly and felt ready for whatever might come. Then I went below deck to the kitchen, made a second mug for myself and one for my guest, and headed back to the captain's cabin where Allie was still resting. She woke up as I sat down on the bed. Her eyes opened slowly, and her nose twitched when she smelled the coffee. She sat up, the sheet slipping down a bit. She got comfortable, leaning back against the headboard. She gave me a quick kiss before taking the mug I offered her. She sipped the coffee and sighed with relief. "Thanks. I really needed this," she said. Then she spoke more seriously. "I've been looking forward to this ever since you talked about living on a boat. I want this to be a fresh start for both of us. I know I have some problems that have been bothering you. Can I begin by saying sorry for the last few days? Things got out of hand, especially at the party. I've always loved you. I think some of my friends won't understand that right away. I don't know why they thought they could treat you that way." I shrugged. "I'm a stranger to them. I agree with Lucy, they worry about what our relationship means for them. Some of your friends depend on you to be part of their group. I'm not what they expected from your boyfriend. I told you, I'm not going to be the usual boyfriend, and honestly, I don't think I've ever met such shallow people." "They're my friends," she said, a little bit defensive, "but that doesn't excuse how they acted." "They're your friends, not mine," I said. "I have no time for that kind of behavior. I didn't expect you to stay with me all night, but I didn't expect to be ignored like that either." "It won't happen again," she said firmly. "Lucy is canceling all my plans for the next 6 months." I looked surprised. "I thought Lucy told me you were starting a new movie in a couple of months." "I was supposed to, but I've decided to pause it so we can get to know each other better." She sighed and moved closer, pressing against me. "It might cause some problems, but I don't care. Having you back in my life makes me the happiest I've ever been." "I worry you'll get bored," I said. "This boat isn't a fancy yacht. It's just my home." "I've done the fancy life," she said. "It gets dull fast. Remember, I'm here because I want to be. And hey, this place isn't that bad." She kissed me, and I was soon caught up in the moment. Last night we had both been too tired for much besides getting undressed and lying close together. Now, as she teased me softly, I felt tense and excited, but I didn't last long before I let out a small cry and relaxed. She looked into my eyes, then slowly moved up to me. asking for a kiss and sharing a sweet moment. She lifted herself up and smiled at me happily. "I love you so much," she said, kissing me again. Then she added, "I think deep down I didn't try very hard to find you because I was afraid you might be with someone else and not want me anymore." She kissed me once more, and I gently helped her lie back and nuzzled her neck. "I never forgot you," I said softly between kisses. Sometimes I was upset about what happened between us, but then I'd see someone who reminded me of you, and I'd remember that last kiss we shared all those years ago. "I'm going to have to give you so many kisses to make up for the ones I missed," she promised. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I love the person I know is still inside you." She blinked back tears and whispered, "When I saw you before you walked away, I thought I had lost my only chance with you again." "We're here together now, so things will be fine," I said. "Now, even though I don't want to, I need to get up and get this old boat ready and stocked for the trip." "We're not staying here?" she asked. "No, not really. I don't usually sail in this area. I was only here last month for a job covering the boat show. I hope to be sailing in the Eastern Mediterranean at this time of year. Once I find the crew I've picked, we'll be leaving." Allie peeked into the bathroom and smiled with surprise at how big and nice it was. The shower was large enough for 2 people. "And maybe even a little one," I joked. She laughed and said she had only been on big, fancy yachts before. "Well, here you get what you see," I said, a bit proudly. "There's more space inside a catamaran than a similar-sized single-hull boat, but this is no super yacht. He'll show you around when you're ready." She nodded and said, "I'm going to take a quick shower, then I'll want something to eat." She gave me a playful smile as she stepped into the shower. I thought about joining her, but decided to wait. "I'll wait for you at the cafe at the end of the dock. How hungry are you?" I called out. "Starving," she answered over the sound of the water. "Just 10 minutes." I walked down to the dock and saw David sitting at a table at the Marina Cafe. He waved, and I waved back. Seeing him made me think about making sure Allie would be safe while she was with me. I really didn't want someone from the security team coming on board. There wasn't much space, and Mandy and Paul were already joining us. Then I realized I didn't know much about them except that they had sailing experience. That was usually all I cared about. I was about to call Mandy to tell her I was back and that they could come on board any time today, but instead I walked over to David to tell him that I had crew members joining Allie and me. "Where's Ashley?" he asked, looking mostly at the boat and only glancing at me now and then. "In the shower. She'll be at least 10 minutes. I'm going to spend the day getting supplies and getting ready to sail tomorrow. We're heading for the Aegean. Oh, and by the way, I've got 2 gap year students joining the crew for the next few months. If they're going to be living close to Ashley, they need to sign a confidentiality agreement," he said firmly. I gave him a surprised look. "Really? Do you expect me to sign one too?" "If I thought you would, I'd ask you," he replied with a small smile. "Well, I won't, and I'm not asking them to sign one. I'm the one hiring them, not Allie." We looked at each other for a moment. He looked away first. "That brings up another point," David said quietly. "I'd feel better if one of my team could be on the boat." I had to ask, "Are any of your people experienced sailors? Because if not, there's no space for another passenger. This is not a luxury yacht. It only has 2 cabins. Allie and I will be using one, and Mandy and Paul will be in the crew cabin." David sighed. "I thought that might be the case. I've hired a yacht and crew to follow you. Would you be okay with us putting a tracking device on your boat?" I thought for a moment and couldn't see why not. "You'll need to get it put on today. We'll handle it this morning. It's automatic and has a panic button if anything comes up." I nodded. David stood and started walking toward the hotel. He pulled out his phone and began talking. I called Mandy and told her I was back on the island and that I needed her and Paul on board by lunchtime. "No problem, Josh," she said. "We're packed and ready. We've been staying on Dad's boat. It's moored at the same dock as you." "Good. He'll see you on board soon." "Will it just be us, or is anyone else coming?" "One guest, my girlfriend." "How about you meet me at the Marina Cafe first? Alice meeting me there in a few minutes. I'll introduce you." Mandy agreed. I ordered coffee and some pastries. As I poured myself a cup, I saw Allie step onto the dock. She looked around, saw me, and started walking my way. She wore white shorts that showed her long, tanned legs nicely, and a t-shirt with the words "Glamour Girl" in pink across the front. Her eyes were hidden behind a pair of expensive sunglasses, and her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail, pulled through the back of a baseball cap. I noticed the cap was one of mine. She looked beautiful, but dressed in a way to blend in and not stand out too much. In that, she partly succeeded. She didn't look like the famous woman she really was, just the most beautiful person around the marina. She gave me a quick kiss when she sat down. She smiled happily as I poured her a coffee, and she bit into a pastry. "How long are we staying here?" she asked, chewing. "Do you mean here?" I said, pointing at the cafe. "Or the whole marina?" "Both, I guess," she replied. "These pastries are great, but mostly when will you take me sailing? I'm excited to spend some quiet time with you." "Well, almost quiet," I said. "I asked a couple of students to help with the boat. I want you to meet them." She stopped eating for a moment, her voice a bit worried. "Do they know about me?" "Yes and no," I said. "I hired them before I knew you'd be joining me. I told them my girlfriend would sail with us, but I didn't say who you are. That's why I asked them to meet us here. If you don't like them, I can find others to help. They seem nice. Mandy has the right experience. Paul's still learning, but he's glad to get more practice." Allie pointed toward the security gate at the pontoon entrance. "Are those them?" I looked and said yes. I waved to Mandy and they came quickly over. "We dropped our bags off on the way," Mandy said. "Is this your girlfriend, boss?" "Fiancé," I corrected. "We got engaged while I was away. Mandy, Paul, this is Allison." "Allie," she added with a smile. "Only my stepfather calls me Allison." She gave Mandy a hug and a quick kiss on the cheek, then shook Paul's hand. I motioned for them to sit, and they did. Mandy happily reached for a pastry. Paul, however, looked at Allie like he thought he should know her from somewhere. "Congrats," Mandy said. "I keep dropping hints to him, but he's not getting it. How long have you known each other?" Allie smiled. "Almost 25 years. We grew up next door to each other." She squeezed my hand. "I moved away and we lost touch, but we met again last week and realized the feelings from when we were young were still there." "Have we met before? You look familiar," Paul asked. Allie let out a little laugh. "No, I don't think we've met before, but you might have seen me as an actress." Paul didn't react much, but Mandy did. Her hand stopped halfway to her mouth, the half-eaten pastry forgotten. "Oh, wow, you're Ashley Bell," she said quietly. "My dad loves your films." Paul stumbled. "But you said your name was Allison." "I am. That's my real name. Ashley Bell is my stage name. Josh has always called me Allison." I turned back to Mandy, trying to focus. "I'd like to leave in the morning," I said. She snapped out of her fan moment and paid attention. "I need you to check what supplies we have on the boat and see if we're missing anything for the first week. If we are, he'll need you to pick those up from the local stores. I plan to sail along the coast of Sicily, then follow the edge of Italy before crossing to Corfu. If possible, I want to avoid sailing at night. There's no rush." The two sailors nodded. All of us knew how tricky sailing at night could be. "Paul, can you check the fuel tanks and fill them if needed?" He agreed with a nod. Just then, David came back, followed by another man carrying a medium-sized cardboard box. "Can we install the equipment we talked about?" he asked. "Yes, looks like we're done here," I said. Everyone agreed quietly, but I saw Allie and Mandy grab the last pastries and wrap them in napkins. I paid the bill, and we walked back to the boat. Allie and Mandy walked close together, heads bent in conversation. David asked about our schedule, so I told him the plan. "We'll be following you," he said. "I'd like to have one of my people on board." Before I could reply, he raised a hand. "I don't have anyone qualified right now. That's why I want this tracker set up and working. Well, stay nearby, only about 15 minutes away if something happens. By the way, do you have a satellite phone on board?" "No, I don't. I usually use my mobile when near the coast." "He'll add a satellite phone to your supplies." By the end of the day, we were ready to leave. The tracker and a backup were installed and tested. The girls went down to get supplies with a shopping list. They used the security team to help carry their bags. We moved the lost girl from her mooring to the fuel dock for filling before heading out. Paul and Mandy wanted to go to a club for their last night in port. They asked if we wanted to join them, But we chose to eat dinner at a local restaurant and then go back to the boat for an early night, though not to sleep right away. I took one last look at the mooring lines, then noticed a small trail of her clothes leading to our cabin. I picked them up and went inside. There, Allie was lying quietly on her stomach, looking over her shoulder with a shy smile. I took off my clothes and lay down beside her. Allie turned over and I showed my affection gently. She smiled softly. We shared quiet moments together, feeling close and calm. After a while, we rested side by side. Allie sighed happily and soon closed her eyes, resting peacefully against me. Not long after, I heard Mandy and Paul laughing softly as they came back to the boat. It was a warm and lighthearted sound. We left Malta very early the next morning, just as the sun was rising. The sky was clear and the sea calm. I called David before we sailed, telling him our route and destination. As we left the shelter of the land, the waves of the Mediterranean rolled gently around us. We raised the sails and turned off the engines. The gentle sound of waves and the wind through the sails filled the air. Lost Girl moved gracefully, and I steered her toward the course shown on the navigation system. By nightfall, 14 hours later, we had covered almost 90 miles and were safely tied up in the marina of a small village called Marzamemi in Sicily. I turned on the radar and soon saw a motor cruiser following us. They stayed about 5 miles behind, just at the edge of the horizon. David's technical guy had fixed a tracker on the wall near the radio with the antenna attached to the crossstay. The tracker was a small black box that looked like part of the radio. It sent out a signal all the time. What was clever was the emergency button. It looked like a power button with green and red lights. The green light showed the tracker was working, and the red came on if the emergency signal was activated. David said that if someone got on board and we couldn't press the emergency button ourselves, the attackers might try to turn off the radio. But trying to turn it off this way would actually turn on the emergency signal. Luckily, our trip had no problems. I spent most of the time steering the boat, taking turns with Mandy. Allie became our very helpful crew member, eager to learn and be part of the team. At first, Mandy and Paul felt a little unsure around her, but soon they saw Allie was just a regular person, not someone special. The yacht, named Lost Girl, was easier to sail than expected. The previous owners had put in every feature to make sailing easier: motorized parts, roller reefing on the mainsail and jib, power winches, anything you could think of. This meant that in an emergency, I could sail it alone. I had tried a few times, but those trips really wore me out. That was why I usually hired someone to help on trips longer than a day. By the harbor, the smell of food cooking on open fires pulled us toward a small restaurant. They were grilling different kinds of seafood over charcoal and roasting meat in a wood-fired oven. Allie sighed as she sat down at the table. "I don't know how you all do this," she said. "I'm so tired. I thought acting was hard, but this is something else." Mandy laughed. "This is nothing. Lost Girl is easy to sail. Try raising a wet mainsail in a storm, then you'll see what hard means, Allie." Allie took a moment to understand Mandy was being serious and sighed again. "Welcome to my world," I told her. "I guess you thought I mostly relax on my boat and just write stories sometimes." She looked at me with a guilty smile. I smiled back. "Well, that's not too far from the truth. Usually I only sail for half a day, then find a place to stop and relax for a few days." Mandy and Paul smiled as Allie said, "I'm not complaining, love. Yes, my body is tight and tired, but I'm the happiest I've been in years, and the smell of the food is making me hungry. Can we order now?" She gave me a quick kiss. We asked the waiter to bring us some of their best dishes and a couple of bottles of local red wine to enjoy with the meal. As we talked and joked, it took me a while to notice a change in Alice's behavior. The careful glances, the quick looks toward her security team, all gone. Her face looked open and relaxed. The girl I remembered was there again. About 20 minutes after we arrived, Alice's security boat came in and parked on the other side of the marina. I had seen David and one of his team walk into town earlier, but after that I didn't see them around. David had said they would stay mostly out of sight, and that seemed to be true. Alice's laugh brought me back to the moment. She and Mandy were laughing at a story Paul was telling. Our first dishes arrived, and we fell silent as we took in the flavors. "Is this how it will be the whole trip?" Allie asked after finishing the last bit of grilled shrimp on her plate. "More or less," I said, "though usually I don't sail so many hours a day unless I have to. Most days, I sail 4 or 5 hours, then find a nice place to stop for the night. You'll be able to write a few articles for travel magazines about this place. That's how I travel, find interesting spots, stay for a day or so, and try to cover costs by writing. Allie said softly, "You know I'm rich, right? Neither of us really has to work again." "How long before we get bored, though?" I asked. "I don't have to do this. I earn enough from my books to live on. But this is fun. I get to do two of my favorite things, sailing and writing, and get paid for it." "Just those two?" Allie said with a teasing smile. "Well, not just those," I said and paused. "There's also the chance to eat and drink in amazing places like this." Mandy laughed. "Idiot." "What?" I said, a little surprised, and Paul chuckled. "Oh, you mean you get to share it all with your girlfriend?" "Well, yeah," I said. "My fiancée, actually. I don't think I could live without her." "Nice catch," Paul said, raising his hand for a high five. Our hands met with a slap, and I finished my wine as the waiter took our empty plates away. Fresh plates appeared quickly, full of tender roast goat and rice, as if by magic. A new bottle of wine was opened, and Allie moved her chair closer so she could rest her head on my shoulder. "I can't remember the last time I felt this relaxed," she whispered softly. "Thank you for letting me come with you. I want you to see that even though I'm older, I'm still the same girl who cared for you." I hoped she meant it, though a small doubt lingered in my mind. The taste of roasted goat matched the delicious smells that had filled the air since we sat down. Soon, our plates were empty, and we dipped the last bits of bread into the sauce. Later, as night came, we moved gently with the boat's slow rocking. We were close, sharing a quiet, warm moment that showed how much we cared for each other. Allie curled up against me, one leg resting over mine. Her head was on my shoulder, and her arm lay softly across me. Her eyes closed, her breathing slowing until soft sighs told me she had fallen asleep. We matched our movements to the rhythm of the water and wind. One day we sailed, the next we stayed anchored, ready to explore before the urge to travel took us on again. During these calm days, two different friendships grew, and it was the second one I was most thankful for. I had hoped that being away from the stress of the outside world and her busy life would give us the chance to reconnect and find the feelings we once had. It took a few days, but soon it felt like the years between us had disappeared, and we were once again those young people from long ago. Allie adjusted quickly to life on the water, as if sailing was a part of her. Her fancy clothes were soon replaced by simple, easy outfits. When we were at sea, she usually wore a swimsuit, and Mandy happily did the same. Allie only needed to be shown once how to help on the boat, and her confidence grew very fast. In a few days, she matched Paul's skills and, within a week, was as good as Mandy at sailing. We were 10 days into the trip, sailing along Italy's coast. We kept to our rhythm of 1 day sailing and 1 day resting. I had stopped worrying about schedules and was simply enjoying watching Allie become part of my world. She still kept in touch with Lucy whenever she had phone signal, but from what I gathered, she wasn't thinking about any new jobs right now. That morning, we left the quiet bay where we had stayed for a day. The yacht, Lost Girl, moved smoothly as the twin bows cut through the rolling waves. Our plan was to reach the marina at Lucca, where we planned to stay for a few days before crossing to Corfu. Ali and Mandy were lying on the front deck, enjoying the sun. They weren't wearing tops because Mandy didn't want tan lines, and Allie soon decided to do the same. When we stopped at the first big town, they had found tiny bikinis in a shop, which they thought were fun and a bit cheeky. Paul and I wisely bought many loose shorts to stay comfortable. Both girls were getting nicely tanned. The faint tan line showed that they didn't worry much about wearing the tiny bikini bottoms when no one else was around. Mandy and Paul understood quickly that Allie was careful about photos of her. She didn't mind group pictures, but asked them not to take or share any photos that might cause problems. She explained, "I think of both of you as friends, and I know you want some memories from this trip. But if the press find me, they'll follow us all the time, and we won't have any peace. You can share nice photos with me later, but not now." Mandy said, "I have a few photos of us sunbathing. I can delete them if you want." Allie smiled and said, "Thanks, but it's okay. I trust you. Just keep them for yourself, and please don't share or save them online. To keep things safe, David will help put special protection on your phones at our next stop. There's a great app we can use for private messages, too. Paul was steering the boat, and I used binoculars to look for the yacht where David and his team were. It took a few days and some late-night talks to really understand how famous and wealthy Allie was and why she needed her security team. She'd been acting in movies for 8 years, but I didn't see any of her films before that trip, which still puzzles me. Her stepfather was very smart. He helped her avoid the many problems young actors face and got her a good agent who really cared about her. Her agent also gave smart advice on money, which made her fortune grow big, about the same as a small country's yearly income. David's boat, called the Xander, was exactly where I thought it would be, about 5 miles behind us. A second, bigger yacht was a few miles behind us, moving in the same direction but closer to the shore. Its path on the radar showed it was headed to the same place as we were, and at its speed it would likely catch up to us in about an hour. Suddenly, I felt someone's arms gently wrap around my waist. Warm breath touched the back of my neck. We both moved with the boat, matching the rhythm of the small waves as it sailed straight into them. The boat was at full speed, moving about 10 knots. "Have I told you how much I love you?" the woman behind me softly whispered. "Not in the last half hour, so I was starting to think you'd changed your mind about me," I teased. She laughed lightly and turned me around so I could see her bright blue eyes. Her laugh became a soft, sweet moment that left me feeling happy. "Idiot," she said, a name she often called me, at least once every hour. Well, if I still felt the same way, I'd want to get to know Mandy better too, she added with a smile. I looked surprised. "Oh, come on. I've seen you looking at her. She's really beautiful." She was right, and Mandy's beauty was more than just outside. In some ways, she was like Alice's twin. Their figures were quite similar, but while Allie had long, straight blonde hair, Mandy's was black, shorter, and wavy. Their eyes were very different, too, and their skin tone was opposite before the sun tanned them both to the same soft golden brown. "She is," I agreed. "So, is that why you hired her?" "I hired her boyfriend, too," I reminded her with a playful smile. "Yes, it helps that she's easy on the eyes, but no. The real reason I gave her the job was because she's a skilled sailor." I tried to look innocent, but Allie gave me a look that said I wasn't fooling anyone. We sat down on one of the soft benches on the back of the boat. It was hard to focus because Allie leaned back, sunlight catching the beads of sweat on her skin. She shifted closer to me. I gently moved a stray strand of hair from her face. She looked up and smiled, asking for a quiet kiss. "Is this what you were hoping for?" I asked. "It's everything I wanted. The last time I felt this free was when I was hiding on a private island. Even then, I had to be careful around the staff. And the other guests," she said quietly, then shook her head when I began to ask more. I made a note to ask David or Lucy if they understood what she was hinting at. "I love it here with you," she said. Then she stood up and sat back down on my lap, facing me, her legs on each side. She looked into my eyes and asked softly, "Do you believe me when I say I love you?" At that moment, all my doubts slipped away. I had asked her to marry me, but it had felt like I was trying to catch someone from my past. Now I could see our future clearly, like lines on a map showing where our lives would go. "Yes," I said. "Hey, ladies," Paul called out. "You might want to cover up. A yacht is going to pass us soon." I looked where he was pointing. The motor yacht I'd seen before was speeding up. It was now less than a kilometer behind us and would soon pass us on the right side. The boat was about 60 meters long with shiny sides and large tinted windows. Mandy came over and both women put on shirts. Mandy shaded her eyes with her hand and looked carefully at the incoming boat. "I don't know this one," she said. "Can you see the name?" she asked Paul, who was holding binoculars. "Not from here. We'll see it when it passes." He gave me the binoculars and I looked closely at the yacht. At first, something felt strange. Usually, boats like this have many people on deck relaxing or moving around, but this one had only one tall man. He was watching us through big binoculars that covered most of his face. He didn't move or wave back when I raised a hand. I felt uneasy. I told Paul to turn the boat a little to the left to put more space between us and the yacht. I moved closer to the tracker and emergency beacon control without thinking as the second yacht came past us. Mandy read the name on the back of the boat. She's the Mirabelle from Napoli. I've never heard of her before, she asked me. No, I said, but I feel like I've seen her somewhere. Allie looked thoughtful. Yeah, I think I know her too, but I can't remember where. We watched as the Mirabelle pulled ahead quickly, water churning behind her. As it moved away, the uneasy feeling faded. Allie spoke again. I'm sure I've seen that boat before. Strange that there was no one on deck, except that strange man with the binoculars, Paul said. Yeah, he seemed very interested in us, Mandy added. It seemed strange, I agreed. I wondered if she was just passing through and only the crew was on board, I said. The radar showed the Mirabelle heading toward the marina at Lucca, just like I thought. Usually when we docked, David would park the Xander a fair distance from the girl. This gave us some privacy but kept us close enough in case we needed to help each other. But not tonight, I thought. I called him on the satellite phone and suggested we dock closer together. I told him something about the Mirabelle was making me uneasy. We reached the marina at Lucca in the afternoon. The wind had stopped after lunch. The marina was small. The town lay behind a small hill and looked down on the marina. A low stone wall kept the winter storms away. The Mirabelle was tied up right against this wall. She was a tall, black and white boat, standing out. Paul and I sailed the girl past her, and again, I felt like we were being watched closely. We docked with the back of the boat facing in, on a float at the far side of the marina. The Xander slipped into a space about 20 meters away. As soon as it was tied up, David stepped off and walked toward us. I waved, and he nodded back, then came on board. Allie was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. She quickly kissed him on the cheek, then looked at me with a questioning look. There's something about that boat that worries me, I told her. I wanted to talk to David about it. She turned to David and asked, Should we be worried? David looked closely at the boat before answering. It's strange that a boat like that isn't full of rich and famous people. She's from Naples and on a 2-month rental now. I can't find out who's renting her, but we're still checking. I'm sure I've seen that boat before, Allie said again. When? Where? David asked. It couldn't have been long ago. She was only built a few years back, David said. Allie shook her head. If you don't remember her, it might have been when I was a guest on another boat and you weren't needed. David thought for a moment and nodded. That would mean she was around the Caribbean 2 years ago, since that's when you spent a month on Zoe's boat. Or during the 6 weeks I rented that small island, Allie added. There were several boats anchored near that resort on the nearby island. I used the island's security so you could take a break. She paused, thinking hard. That's it. I'm sure that's where I saw her. She was anchored there for weeks, or at least a boat that looked just like her, she said, nodding toward the Mirabelle. Paul looked up from the laptop he and Mandy were watching. If the boat you saw looked like that one, then it was her. She's a Bonetti design boat, and they made only one with that hull color. All the others are blue. Do you know who rented it? Sorry, he told David. The charter company's website says the boat won't be available until October. Then it will move to the Caribbean for the winter. It might not mean anything, but I'll set up a security watch just in case, David said. And if you go into town, I'd like to have at least one of my team with you all the time. I think Allie thought I might not like that, but I was happy to agree. That evening, when the 4 of us went out to find a restaurant, we had 2 security guards with us. The evening was calm. The food was good, the local wine was great, and we felt relaxed as we headed back to our rooms. Garth, who was the senior security guard, walked us back and said one of them would stay on the boat until morning. I showed them where the coffee was and left them to their watch. Mandy and Paul went into their cabin as soon as we got back, and Allie was lying on our bed. She looked tired and pulled her shorts halfway down. Her top was on the floor. She gave me a look as if she wanted help and turned onto her back with her arms open. I helped her get comfortable. She smiled softly and rested quietly as I stayed close to her, showing how much I cared. We shared a quiet, gentle moment together, holding each other and feeling close. Allie looked happy and peaceful as we stayed near each other. I love you very much, she said quietly. I smiled back and said, I love being close to you. She reached out and invited me to hold her tight. We stayed close, wrapped in each other's arms, sharing the quiet night, feeling safe and loved. She felt so happy, and I wanted to see her face as she relaxed and smiled while I moved slowly with her. She moved with me each time. Her mouth was open, and she took deep breaths as we kept a steady rhythm like the gentle waves outside. We both reached a high point at the same time. Allie made soft sounds, and my voice joined hers as we finished together. I lay back, holding Allie close. She made a small sound as I stayed close before settling on top of me, making sure I didn't slip away. I love how you make me feel, Allie whispered near my ear, then kissed my neck softly. She tightened a little as she looked into my eyes. I told her I loved her too, and she smiled like she was very happy. I want to have my implant taken out soon, she said. I want to have your baby. I want to feel him moving inside me. Just one? I asked. She thought for a moment and shook her head. No, I think we should have 3, but we'll need a bigger boat. I laughed, shaking underneath her. She gasped softly as I moved gently against her. So, are you going to get me that as a gift? I teased. She moved slowly with me and said seriously, He'll give you anything you want, but don't ever give up on girl. I've never been this happy. Her eyes looked dreamy as I started moving with her again. Oh yes, she said softly. Then she moved carefully but strongly with me. Soon she lost her balance from joy and leaned on me, breathing hard. More? She asked in a soft, hopeful voice. I turned her gently and moved with her again. This time I focused quietly as I kept going, reaching my own high point. That good feeling grew stronger and took over all my thoughts. Finally, I reached the end, making quiet sounds as I stayed close to her with slow, steady movements. No more, she said softly after we both caught our breath. That was too much at the end. Her legs stayed wrapped around me so I could not move away. I relaxed and slipped free, hearing a quiet sigh of disappointment. Our bodies were warm and close together. So tired, she whispered, curling up and holding me tight. Almost at once she was asleep, breathing softly with quiet sighs. As I felt the tension leave her body, my last thought before falling asleep was regret over the 12 years lost. The next morning, voices woke me. I focused and recognized Mandy and Paul. Then a third voice I knew was David's. I looked at my watch after gently moving my arm from under Alice's head. It was late morning. That was the latest I had slept in years. Allie moved as I shifted and slowly opened her eyes. When she saw me looking at her, she smiled broadly. Did I tell you I love you? I asked. Yes, she said, but I don't mind if you keep saying it. I smiled but then groaned as I sat up. My body ached, and I was very uncomfortable from last night. Allie showed the same signs, and the cabin smelled strongly of our time together. I really need to use the bathroom and take a shower, I said. She got out of bed and said, It'll help wash your back if you help with mine. She smiled playfully and walked toward the bathroom. After showering and feeling better, we got dressed and headed to the kitchen. Mandy had left a plate of fresh fruit, and I made us each a cup of coffee. We took our breakfast onto the deck where David was still talking with Mandy and Paul. They left first thing this morning, David said when he saw me. For a moment, I didn't understand. Then I looked over at the harbor wall and saw the empty spot where the Mirabelle had been tied. I felt a wave of relief I hadn't even realized I had. Allie looked relieved, too, while David asked how much longer we planned to stay. Another day, I guess, I said. Then we'll head to Corfu. But that wasn't what happened. The next afternoon, while Paul and Mandy went to the local store to get fresh food for the trip, my phone rang. Since we were in port, I wasn't too surprised to get a signal. Allie and I looked at the phone like we expected it to explode. What do you know about Croatia? My agent asked when I answered and put the call on speaker so Allie could hear. I'm fine, Catherine, I said, avoiding her question. How are you? We heard her murmur, then she said, Fine, I'm okay. Where are you now? At the southern tip of Italy. We'll head to Corfu in the morning. Josh, how do you feel about a side trip? Let me guess, Croatia? Exactly. Yachting Monthly wants you to write 10 pages about cruising around the Croatian islands. I've never been there, I said. They thought so. They want a story about you exploring the islands. 10 pages with at least 6 photos, plus a follow-up article for next month's issue. You know, the kind of place with the prettiest islands, the best spots to stay, good food and drinks. I knew what she meant. I visited places like that several times a year. What are they offering? I asked. It's a good deal, Josh. The Croatian government is paying for the article. They'll give you $5,000 for expenses and another $12,000 for writing it. And the follow-up piece? Another $3,000. That was a lot of money for me, but for Ali, it was nothing. Still, I didn't want to take the job if it would cause any trouble between us. I didn't need to worry. Ali quickly said, "Hell do it. He promised to show me some islands, and I don't care if they are in Croatia or Greece." There was a pause on Catherine's end before she asked, "Who are you?" "I'm Allison. I'm his fiancée." "Oh, congratulations to you both. You know, you just broke my secretary's heart. I think she's secretly liked Josh for years. She'll have to compete with me. I've loved him since I was 8. "I think that wins," Catherine laughed. "Josh, he'll send you an email with all the details. They need the first draft in 6 weeks. Is that okay?" I thought about the distances in my head. That should work. It will take about a week to get there. That leaves us a month to sail around the islands and a week to finish the article. "Thanks, Josh. Bye, Allison. Call me if you need anything." She ended the call. "So, Croatia," Ali said. "I guess you haven't been there before?" I shook my head. "I think I filmed there once, a few years ago. How do we get there?" "2 ways. We can follow the Italian coast to Ancona, then cross over to Croatia. Or we can cross to Albania and sail up the coast to the islands. We've done Italy. Let's take the scenic route." She kissed me, and that was decided. It took us a week to reach the first island. We sailed about 6 hours every day. The Xander stayed close until the last hour, then went ahead to find a good place to stay for the night. Twice during the trip, Paul pointed out something on the radar. A small dot followed us for a while before disappearing. If it was the Mirabelle watching us, we never saw it. I didn't tell Ali about it because I didn't want her to worry. The Croatian islands were a hidden treasure. I was a little embarrassed I hadn't known about them before. Honestly, I almost wanted to write a bad review just to keep the place quiet. Luckily, Catherine's email had local contacts and even an introduction to the Minister of Tourism. His office had given us papers that let us explore the islands freely and, most importantly, park our boat wherever we wanted. Some of the smaller islands were nearly empty, with wide, sandy beaches inviting us to leave our footprints and relax in the clear water. The bigger islands had towns and marinas where we could rest comfortably. Most of the towns stretched along low hills. The red roof tiles of the houses shone in the late afternoon sun, a picture I plan to use in my article. By the end of our 3rd week, things went wrong. There was no warning. The day before, we had been sailing in and out of the pretty bays along the coast of Lošinj Island, finally tying up in the natural harbor of the main town. What David and I did not know was that the town sat on a narrow strip of land and had a second busy harbor on the other side. Usually, we would check with the harbor staff when we arrived to ask if the Mirabelle had been around or was expected. This time, we asked the wrong person. If we had walked across the town, we could have seen the sleek yacht and acted carefully. That first evening, we stayed near our side of town. The harbor master suggested a local restaurant, which turned out to be a great choice. The food and drinks were wonderful, and nearby we found a small club with live music and a tiny dance floor. Paul and I spent the evening happily enjoying watching our girlfriends dance. No one bothered Ali, and she enjoyed the freedom without attention. It was a happy group that slowly made its way back to the girls' mooring when the club closed. The next morning, after starting the day late, Ali and I wandered through the narrow streets and small squares near the harbor. Apart from simply appreciating Ali's beauty, she was left alone. In one square, we found a local craft market, and Ali moved quickly from stall to stall. In the end, I had to buy a cloth shopping bag to hold all the things she picked, mostly local jewelry and sandals she loved. We had lunch at a tiny cafe with several tables under a vine-covered pergola. Lunch was a fresh salad with small grilled baby octopus, each no bigger than my thumb. Back on the boat, Ali decided to take a nap. I wanted to rest too, but I had to work on the article. I opened my laptop, settled into the shade, and started on my draft. I downloaded pictures from my camera and saved the best ones in a new folder to use later. I typed up the notes I had been taking, adding details and realizing I already had enough for at least 3 articles, and we still had more than a week to go. Allie woke up full of energy, doing her Tigger impression to get me away from the laptop. She had been doing that since she was 7, when she found out about the character with the springy tail. She was really good at it, too. The wonderful thing about Allison's is Allison's are wonderful things, and I'm the only one, she sang as she climbed onto my lap. You know that's not how the words go, I told her, trying not to smile. I gave up and closed the laptop. Thank goodness there's only one of you. I don't think I'd survive if there were more, I said. She pouted, then laughed and gave me a kiss. She touched her lips and said, honey, then kissed me again. You're mixing up the characters, I said. In my world, Allison's love honey, too. Can we go back to that club tonight, please? Sure, I said, but I don't want to stay out too late. We're supposed to leave early in the morning. That's fine. Just a couple of hours would be great. I stretched, trying to relax, and rubbed my temples, hoping to ease the dull ache behind my eyes. I hated to admit it, but I thought I needed to get my eyes checked. This was happening more and more after staring at the screen for hours. Are you okay? Allie asked, worried. Just a headache. Probably my fault. I think I need glasses. She took my hands and gently rubbed my temples and neck. We don't have to go out tonight. I'd be just as happy staying here with you. You'll take a shower and see how I feel. Let's at least plan to eat out. How about that restaurant from last night? And if I feel better, we can try the club afterward. Since it was probably their last chance for a while to have fun and relax, the girls pulled out all the stops. They wore matching dresses they found in a small shop by the harbor. For the first time in weeks, Allie looked just like the movie star she was. I had taken a short nap after my shower. I felt a little better, but the headache was still there. I didn't want to ruin Alice's night, so I told her I was feeling fine. At the restaurant, the owner watched Allie closely. His eyes squinted as if he was trying to figure something out. He remembered us from the night before. But then Allie hadn't stood out. Tonight, she looked different, like a real star. When the waiter cleared our plates, his curiosity got the best of him. He came over quietly so no one else would hear and asked, "Sorry to bother you, but are you the film star, Ashley Bell?" Allie smiled brightly and nodded. Then she put a finger to her lips, signaling to keep it a secret. "I am, but please don't make a big deal. I'm on holiday and want to stay quiet." He looked a little sad, thinking his chance of being famous was slipping away. Allie smiled, called a waiter over, and gave him her phone. She asked him to take some pictures of us with his boss. She gave the owner a quick kiss on the cheek, and he blushed. She smiled and said, "If you give me your email, he'll send you the best photos after our holiday. You can even print them if you want." He gave her a business card, which she passed to me. I put it in my wallet. "We have a website too," he said. "Please leave us a message there." "We will, but it might be a week or so," I said, rubbing my head. The headache I had felt since this afternoon was getting worse again. I paid the bill while Mandy and Allie got ready, looking down the street toward the club's entrance. Paul noticed me pressing my hands to my head and looked worried. Suddenly, the dull ache turned sharp, and I felt sick. "You look pale. How are you?" Paul asked. I waved him off, not wanting anyone to pay more attention to me. Allie heard him and gave me a quick, worried look. "You're not well, love. Let's go back to the boat," she said. Behind her, I saw Mandy's disappointed face. I knew how much both she and Allie had enjoyed the club the night before. No matter how I felt, they deserved their night out. "I just need to rest, but you 3 can still go to the club for a while." I nodded toward the security man with her, Jeff, who used to work for U.S. Protection. "As long as Jeff stays with you, I won't worry." Allie smiled, even though she tried to hide it. "You don't mind?" she asked. "Well, only be gone an hour or so." "No, go have fun. Wake me with a kiss when you come back." We stepped onto the street. She kissed me deeply before linking arms with Paul and Mandy as they walked up the road. Jeff stopped and said, "She'll be fine. I'll watch over her and make sure she comes back safe." I went back to the boat called Girl and took a couple of painkillers. I was asleep almost as soon as my head hit the pillow. Sounds of people coming back to the boat woke me for a moment, but only briefly. It took me a second to realize morning light was shining through the portholes. Then David's raised voice woke me fully, and I sat up. "Has anyone seen Ashley?" "I'm not sure. Like we said, we left the club before her. Isn't she in the cabin with Josh?" Mandy replied. I reached out to wake her and then realized I was alone. Her side of the bed was empty. There was no sign she had slept there last night. There was a knock on the door. Before I could say anything, it opened, and David stood in the doorway. His eyes quickly searched the room, looking for Ashley. When he saw only me, his face grew serious. "Ashley." I shook my head. He turned and left. I quickly got dressed and followed him. Jeff sat in the cockpit looking pale. David stood over him. "Tell me again, what happened?" David asked. Jeff looked sleepy and reached for the bottle of water Mandy held out to him. He rinsed his mouth, spat the water out over the side, then drank the rest quickly. Jeff looked at me and mouthed, "Sorry." My heart sank. "What has happened?" "Where is she?" David asked sharply. "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Jeff said. "It seems she met some friends last night and might be staying with them." There was something in his voice that didn't feel right, and I felt uneasy. "She would have told me," I began. But David quieted me with a hand and signaled Jeff to continue. Jeff swallowed and said, "Miss Bell met some friends at the club and decided to join their group for a while after her friends left to come back here. I called for backup the new girl, Petra. I wasn't worried, but there are some places I can't follow that a woman could." He shrugged, and David nodded. "We wanted to get back, and Allie said she'd only be a short time. She just wanted to catch up. Jeff was with her, so we weren't worried," Paul said. Jeff added, "It only took Petra 5 minutes to get there, and honestly, boss, it was just a safety move. Nothing seemed wrong. Ashley knew the people in the group. They were friends, and I've seen her with them before." "Who?" David and I asked at the same time. "I don't know the names, boss. It was Simon Davies and an Italian guy, Antonio. There was another man and some women Ashley seemed to know. They showed up just as we were about to leave." "Just them?" "There were a couple of Antonio's security people with them. I've seen them around before." I cut in, feeling urgent. "Ashley is missing, and we aren't doing enough. Has anyone tried calling her phone? We need to call the police." David made a calming gesture. "Of course. We tried her phone, it switched off. I've already sent the rest of the team to search the town. We're also checking with the club staff. Someone has to know who she left with. I want all the details before we think about calling the local police. I'm not sure how much help they will be, so I got backup from the home office," he said. He looked at Jeff, who went on. "They saw Ashley and came over. I think everyone was surprised to see each other there. He nodded toward Mandy and Paul, said their goodbyes, and left. Ashley joined Simon's group, and they found a quiet spot to sit. He paused, as if trying to remember. I stayed off to one side where I could keep an eye on her. Antonio's team was with me. Petra showed up a few minutes later. Ashley looked happy to see the women, but a bit annoyed with Simon and Antonio. They ordered some drinks, and when the waitress came back, she had several bottles of water for us, the security team, he said. "Boss, I'm not stupid. The bottle I chose was sealed, and I picked it randomly from the tray. It was hot, and I was thirsty. Petra wasn't drinking." He let out a soft groan and looked at me. It had to be drugged because after a few minutes, the room started spinning, and I remember sinking toward the floor. I woke up about an hour ago in one of those little rooms over there. I got back here, but no one had seen her or Petra. One of the security guards hurried across the street to us, and David stepped down to meet him. They talked, and I heard David swear under his breath. He then waved me over. The Mirabelle was docked in the harbor on the other side of town. Was docked? It left first thing this morning, and now we find out the boat has been rented out to the Rossi fashion business all this time. Antonio's been following us this whole time. And he took her? I don't know. I'm sure she's on the boat, but I don't know if she's there by choice or not. She can't be with him by choice. He drugged Jeff. But not Petra. At least, not that we know of. If she wasn't, then where is she? David's face was hard. That's exactly what I want to find out. I stood there, lost and confused. I had come back to the boat feeling sick, but happy. Now for the second time, my life was falling apart, and I'd lost the woman I loved. He saw the pain on my face. Josh, I've never seen her as happy as she has been these last few weeks. She loves you. This isn't her having doubts. She would never leave without telling me, not in all the years I've worked with her. We will find her. I'll call in some favors, and we should be able to get satellite pictures of the area soon. It will cost us, but I have enough budget for that. We know what time the boat left, so we should be able to find it and follow its path. This is all so messed up, I whispered. What's wrong with that guy? How does he even think he can get away with this? His family has many strong connections, but still, I don't get why he would do something like this. He stopped for a moment and looked deep in thought. I have to call an old friend. Maybe he can help. Then call him, I said. Let's go back to the boat. I'd rather not be overheard. Once we were back on the boat, we sat in the salon. David looked through his contacts until he found the right one. I'll put it on speaker, but you need to let me do the talking. I'll tell you everything after the call. Before I could say anything, he made the call. A deep American voice answered, Davy, my man, what can I do for you? Jamal, good to hear from you, old friend. I'm guessing this isn't just a friendly chat. What's going on, man? My boss has been taken, and I think you can help put me in touch with someone who can find her. Who is she? Ashley Bell, but the news hasn't been made public yet. I get it. So how can Alicia help? We believe Antonio Rossi from Rossi Fashion is connected. I want to talk to his father, Maurizio. I think he and Ali Mack are old friends. Maurizio Rossi? You mean Maurice? No way, man. He's a proper gentleman, very old-fashioned. He wouldn't be involved in something like this. We're not saying he is, but we need him to talk to his son. Antonio used a yacht rented by the fashion house. There was a long silence on the other end. I looked at David, confused. He shook his head and whispered, Wait. I heard a soft, calm woman's voice break the quiet. David, I want to know why I should help you. You're accusing the son of one of my oldest friends. You need to convince me. I put my hand on David's arm. Let me talk to her, I whispered. He shrugged and moved the phone toward me. Hi, Alicia. I'm Josh Thomas, Allison's fiancé. Allison? I thought this was about Ashley Bell. It is, I said nervously. They are the same person. I've known Allie for years, and I just don't think of her as Ashley. Okay, I can understand that. But why should I help? Why risk an old friendship? I told her everything we knew and what we believed. Sometimes I paused when she or Jamal asked questions to be sure we were clear. So that's where things stand, I said at the end. Allie was last seen in the club with Antonio. Now Ali, the boat, and Antonio are all missing. We have one angry bodyguard who seems very tired and in pain. I need to ask David a question, Alicia said, and I need you to let him answer. I made a sound to show I agreed, and David said yes. You've worked for Ashley for many years. Has she ever disappeared like this before? Jamal says she and Antonio have a history. She's gone away with him before, and Simon was her boyfriend once. Could it be that she wanted to be with one of them, and this is not a kidnapping? I growled quietly, but David raised his hand to stop me and spoke firmly. Very unlikely. Ashley and Simon ended things badly months ago. Her friendship with Antonio was just that, a friend. Antonio has wanted more for a long time, but she never felt the same. So no, I don't think she'd go away with either of them on her own, not now that Josh is back in her life. I believe you, Alicia said quietly, sounding worried. I have to make a call, and I'm not looking forward to it. We'll get back to you. Then the call ended. After a short pause, I asked David, Do you think it will work? I hope so. Rumor says Antonio is only afraid of his father. We didn't wait around for David's phone to ring again. His team had set up a small control center on the Xander boat. That's where we stayed. The first satellite pictures of the area were now available on a private website. We were using a commercial mapping satellite. At least that's what I understood. The pictures looked much clearer than usual, even better than Google Maps. The pictures were not live, though. The newest showed the Mirabelle near the harbor entrance at 6 in the morning. The boat was moving southward. They told me, We will get more pictures soon. We have made the search area bigger now that we know the direction they might be heading. That day felt like the longest of my life. The sun moved slowly across the sky, marking the deep worry in my heart. Around us, the world kept turning, not knowing what was happening. It felt strange that we were just sitting there while the boat was moving farther away every minute. But without proof, no one would stop the Mirabelle out at sea. We needed proof. Little by little, more news came in. One of Antonio's bodyguards was seen almost carrying Jeff out of the club. The staff at the club said he had drunk too much. The rest of the group left about an hour later. Several of the women seemed to need help walking. The bouncer at the door thought Allie might be one of them, but he wasn't sure because she had been in the middle of the group when they left. He was especially worried about one woman, Petra. He remembered her arriving in a hurry, which seemed strange, so he asked if she was okay. She stuck in his mind because of that. She had been walking freely, moving among the group. David found out about this after throwing his coffee mug across the deck in frustration. "That's how they always seem to know where we plan to go," he shouted. "I hoped they'd made her go with them." He ordered, "Search her belongings and her bunk. Maybe they didn't expect it and she left us some clues." He looked at me with anger in his eyes. "She's only been with us for 3 months and came with the best references. Guys I'd trust my life with. I don't know what went wrong, but I promise you, you'll find out. All I wanted was to sail out on the girl and look for her. But even I knew that without information, it would be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. We could follow the Mirabelle only in short bursts, as more satellite pictures became available. The boat was still moving southeast, staying close to the coast and the outer islands. It was clear they were ready to quickly escape to international waters if the authorities tried to stop them. We got updates every 90 minutes, so for most of the time, their location was just a guess. In the mid-afternoon, we lost track of the boat. Our best guess was that they had hidden in one of the many small coves along a 50-mile stretch of the coast. Most likely, they were anchored in the shadow of a cliff where the cameras couldn't see them. "We'll get one more flyover before night falls," David said. "I don't think they'll risk traveling at night." He pointed to the map on the table where we had marked the likely area. "Well, have a helicopter ready at first light to check all the coves there." We didn't see the boat on the next set of images, so the waiting continued. We all kept looking at the phone that sat in the middle of the table, hoping it would ring. It wasn't until late that evening that we got the call we had been waiting for. David answered and put the call on speaker so we could all hear. After a few polite words, Alicia took over from Jamal and got straight to the point. "Luckily for all of us, Maurice is staying at his daughter's villa near Saint-Tropez. He's enjoying some time with his grandchildren. I was lucky to be in Carcassonne with my family, not far away by car. I brought my family with me. Maurice is my daughter's godfather, and he was happy to see us at first. That is, until I told him why we came. He called Antonio while I was there, expecting Antonio to say he knew nothing. But Antonio didn't deny that Ashley was with him. Instead, he said she was there by her own choice. I asked to talk to her, even insisted. But Antonio at first said no. Then, after his father pushed him, a woman with a slight American accent spoke to me on the phone. "What did she say?" I asked quickly. "Josh, it wasn't Ashley. I met her a couple of years ago, and while this woman sounded a bit like her, Ashley didn't have an American accent. Plus, she didn't reply when I called her Allison." "Can you try to get her on the phone again?" David asked. "So we can be sure." "No need," I said. "I know she's on that boat, and she's not there by choice. Antonio's bodyguards actually work for the fashion company, not for Antonio himself. Maurice had his head of security call them and warn them off. They said Antonio has her locked in a cabin." "Where exactly is the boat?" David asked. "That's the problem. Maurice knows where it is because he got the boat company to turn on the GPS tracking. The bodyguards' phones also have GPS. But Maurice won't tell us the location unless we agree to let him handle his son, and that the police won't get involved." I thought about taking matters into my own hands, but if Maurice believed I wouldn't deal with his son carefully, he was wrong. I was ready to play along if that helped get Ashley back. "Agreed," I said before David could answer. "Good," Maurice said. "The head of security will send you the details. The captain has orders to stay where they are and to ignore anything Antonio says. The bodyguards will get all the other guests off the boat." Not Petra! David almost shouted. I want her locked up somewhere safe. I'm going to make sure she pays for what she did. Who is Petra? Alicia asked, confused. She was one of Allison's bodyguards, I said. But it seems she switched sides, and David is not happy about that. He wants to make her understand her mistake. That's fair, Jamal said. I will pass the order to keep her confined to the boat. Jamal then explained more. All the security team on the boat have been reminded who they work for. They understand their jobs. The crew has been told by their bosses that the Rossi Fashion House paid for the boat trip, and Antonio is no longer part of it. The captain expects your call. He'll send you all the information. The bottom line is, you will have to go and get her yourself. Antonio isn't going to give her up easily. But remember, Jamal said, the bodyguards will be told not to get involved, but they won't let you hurt their boss badly. Though I think Maurice didn't mind if his son came home with a few marks now and then. Why can't the bodyguards take Allie somewhere safe for us to meet her? I asked, feeling confused by how complicated this plan was. Wait a moment, David said to the callers and pressed the mute button. That would make Maurice part of the plan, he explained. From now on, no one connected to Maurice or his business can be seen talking to Ashley. That's why Jamal said Antonio was fired. We have to get her ourselves. That shouldn't be a problem because Antonio is telling people she's a guest and can leave anytime she wants. I nodded, even though I didn't fully understand the details. I was ready to go along if it meant getting Allie back. I didn't care what the bodyguards thought. Antonio and I needed to talk. David unmuted the phone and said I understood and agreed with the plan. Plan to act tomorrow night, Jamal said. The crew will make sure the other guests are out of the way. Antonio will be kept in his cabin after midnight. The boat is docked in a small bay at the northern end of Dugi Otok. Soon after leaving, there will be a pretend problem with the engine, forcing the captain to come back to the marina at Veli Rat. The boat is too big to dock inside, so it will stay anchored in the bay. What if Antonio tries to run away with Allie? I asked. He won't be able to. He'll be told the repairs will just take an hour, and the small boats from the yacht won't be available. I couldn't believe Antonio would just sit and let us take Ali. No one had said anything about Simon. What was he doing in all of this? We got the final details the next morning. The Mirabelle was going back to port, moving very slowly while the captain acted like the engine was badly broken. The charter company sent us the boat plans, and the Italian bodyguards on board said where Ali was. We also learned that apart from the crew and bodyguards, only 3 people were on the boat: Antonio, Simon, and Ali. We took the girl boat in case Petra had hidden a tracker on Xander before she left. She wasn't on the Lost Girl, so we had less chance of being followed. We dropped anchor about 3 miles from the marina on the far side of a tall headland. We had been towing a small inflatable boat with us. Just before midnight, David, Jeff, and I got into the inflatable. The quiet electric motor pushed us quickly toward a small beach just before the last headland near our target. We knew the full moon could cause problems. It was too bright, and we would be seen as we got close to the marina. We decided to wait until it went down. The best time to reach the yacht was 1:30 a.m., but the moon did not set until 2:30. We had to return to the girl well before morning when the local fishermen would start their day. The 3 of us waited by the small boat on the beach. We wore black wetsuits. We watched the moon slowly go down toward the horizon. Finally, it disappeared, and the bright light faded away. The sea and island coast were almost completely dark. Our only light came from the many stars in the sky and some small lights from a town across the marina. We did not need to speak. We pushed the inflatable boat into the water and started the quiet electric motor. We moved out of the safe cove and drove around the headland to hide our path. The Mirabelle was anchored, its small anchor lights and 1 deck lamp barely visible in the dark. We came close slowly, stopping when our boat touched the platform at the back. A dark figure stepped forward. We stopped until a soft Italian voice asked, "Signore David?" "Yes," David said. "I'm Carlo. You were told we'd be here." He tied our boat to the yacht and we climbed aboard. Speaking quietly, Carlo said, "The crew except the captain are in their rooms. They won't come out unless something is wrong with the boat. The captain is on the bridge." "And the others?" David asked. "Signorina Bell is in her cabin with the key. She is safe. Signore Rossi is in his cabin. My colleague is watching his door. And Simon? I asked. He is in the cabin of one stewardess. They have a sort of arrangement that helps both of them, Carlo said with a small smile. Jeff chuckled softly, and Carlo made a typical Italian shrug. David then asked, "Where is Petra?" Carlo replied, "She was not on the boat when we left, Signore. She helped bring Signorina Belle on board and then left." David muttered, "Damn it. She must have been watching us the whole time. I will find her." Carlo led us inside and down a stairway. Halfway down the hallway, a second guard stood by a closed door. "He is in there. Do you want to speak with him?" the guard asked. "Allie first," I said to David. He nodded. "That cabin," Carlo said, pointing to another closed door further along the hall. "You go get her," David said to me. "Carlo can take Jeff to find Simon. Bring him to the main room. Then you and I will ask Antonio to join us for a talk." Carlo and the other guard spoke a few words in Italian before agreeing. Allie's door was locked, so I knocked. This was ridiculous. I was trying to rescue Allie, but I was just knocking politely on her cell door. "Go away!" Alice's voice sounded rough and worried. I tried to say something clear. "Allie, love, open the door, it's me." Then I added quickly, "Jaws." A key turned in the lock and the door opened just a little. When she saw me, it swung wide open. A blonde woman dashed toward me and fell into my arms. "It's you," she said quickly as we hugged. "I thought Antonio was playing another nasty trick when the bodyguard gave me the key and told me to lock myself in and wait for help." "We're here now," I said. "Do you know what his plan was about?" She shook her head and I took her hand. I led her down the hall and back up the stairs to the main room. Antonio was there, speaking loudly in Italian with the second bodyguard. I couldn't help myself. I moved close and hit Antonio in the stomach. He gasped and bent over, dropping to his knees. His bodyguard just watched quietly and shook his head when I raised my arm for another hit. "One is enough," he said. "We have orders. Others will handle this." I stepped back and went to Allie. The bodyguard helped Antonio to a chair and then stood behind him. David was quietly talking to Allie, making sure she was all right. We heard Simon before we saw him. Jeff held Simon's arm as he was pushed into the room. Simon was wearing only shorts. Any doubts about their plan disappeared when he saw me with Allie. "This is your fault," Simon said angrily. "You spoiled everything." "What did me being sick have to do with it?" I asked. "We were told both of you would be at the club," Simon said. "We wanted to surprise you and invite you for a drink. The drinks would have been mixed with something special that Tony uses sometimes. It's not a drug to harm people, but something to help take control, to make you and your friends very easy to influence." Antonio growled from his chair. "It would have worked." "You weren't there and the others were leaving, so I thought we lost the chance. But Tony got Ash to stop for one drink." "But what were you going to do with us?" Ali asked. "You wouldn't have noticed," Simon said. "We'd let the plan do most of the work. You would have come back here thinking it was your idea. Tony was supposed to make you believe Josh was not loyal, that he was interested only in your money. The drug would have made you think it was your own idea." He shrugged. "If that nice crew girl had stayed at the club, we planned to use a mix of sleep and mind drugs to make her believe she was deeply in love with Josh and really wanted to be with him. We had other drugs for Josh to make him more interested, too." Allie smiled a little. "No need for those with Josh. He's always ready. I should know." I was surprised she found any humor in the situation. She took my hand and squeezed it gently. She needed to let off some stress, and this was her way. I squeezed back and took the chance to tease her kidnapper. "That's true, love. I never needed drugs to make a woman care for me," Allie said. "The plan was for me to find them together, feel hurt because of my friendship with her, and then break up with Josh. Which one of you was I supposed to turn to, or both?" Neither of them looked at her. Neither denied she was right. "So why keep going when it didn't work out at the club?" I asked. Antonio suddenly looked crazy for a moment. "She's mine. If I had more time, she would never want to come back to you." "What did you think you were going to do? Keep me on drugs until I agreed to be with you?" she said sharply, even spitting a little near him. The room grew quiet as one of the Italian guards placed a hand on Antonio's shoulder to stop him from standing. "He and that silly Petra decided to keep trying," Simon said. She put something in Ash's drink and the other guard's water. Who was the third man at the club that night? David asked. A friend of his, a high-class manager. The women were his, all former models. A few had met Ash before. We planned to use one of them if your girl didn't work out. He left and took them when he saw what Tony was planning. David checked his watch. We need to leave before the town wakes. I didn't argue. I stood up and Allie took my hand. David and Jeff nodded at the two guards, who nodded back. We moved to the deck, but Allie paused in the doorway. Simon, I'll make sure nobody wants to work with you again. Go hide somewhere. He seemed to shrink, a small man in a big world. She looked at Antonio, but only shook her head and left the room. We boarded the small boat and headed back to the girl, leaving Antonio and Simon with the guards. From what I learned talking to Jamal, Maurice was not happy with what his son had done. We were back on the girl before the sun came up. Ali hugged Paul and Mandy. Her feelings finally took over and she cried quietly while holding the younger woman close. Mandy picked her up gently, and with a nod from me, she took her down to the cabin. Paul was lifting the anchor, and we started moving out to sea, heading to meet the Xander. Once we were on our way, and Paul was calm at the wheel, I went below deck. David and Jeff were half asleep on the sofas, with a couple of half-empty beer bottles on the table. Allie was curled up under the blanket on our bed, her hair wrapped in a towel. She had clearly just come out of the shower. Mandy sat on the edge of the bed holding Alice's hand. Allie looked up when I came in. She wanted a shower. I thought it was a good idea, Mandy said. I nodded, sat down on the bed, and wrapped my arms around the woman I loved. Only 48 hours had passed since I found out she was missing. Just 48 hours. But it felt like the longest 2 days of my life. I heard Mandy close the door behind her. Allie turned her head to face me. I'm so sorry, she said. Why? Ed. It's not your fault. I should have known it wasn't just a chance meeting when Antonio and Simon showed up at that club. I was foolish to sit down and take a drink. She looked at me, hoping I would understand and believe her. I woke up in the cabin you found me in. Antonio was at the foot of the bed. It was weird he just stood there without saying a word for 5 minutes. He didn't answer my questions, then he left. That was the only time I saw him until you came. And Simon? I didn't see him until David brought him into the cabin. It's over now, love. We can go back to living our lives, just with one change. What change? Next week, you'll change your name to Allison Thomas. Her arms closed around me tight, and she gave me a kiss that felt like it would last forever.